Hello everyone, I'd like you to welcome Gemetic, and today we're going to be going over the Dark Souls, DSG tier list.
Hello.
Okay, so I'm going to be looking at this more from a sort of arena random, pontiff random duel stuff based on the fact that I've used just about every weapon in the list, whereas Gemetic is a tournament player who's got to the finals many times, he's got quite far into them, and he is someone who knows the meta in and out. So he's going to be focusing more on this from the dirty meta side.
Yup.
Okay, and as I said before...
Start with the...
Yes. Let's start with daggers then. So let's start with introducing the way that we think daggers are best played. So seeing as you're the meta man, I'll let you go first.
Like, personally, with daggers, they're fast. When you R1 spam with the daggers, you can actually get 2 or 3 hits in before actually rolling away if the opponents try to like R1 spam you. If the daggers have the most potential for R1 spamming, the one thing that falls short with the daggers is the range itself. And there are only, after what I know, there are 2 daggers that I like with like range wise, and that is the Corvian knife, because that's the best range of the dagger, and one dagger that's actually starting to get better after the new update is actually the Mail Breaker. Those are the 2 daggers that I would use, and the regular dagger is good as well. The other daggers for me are more of like meh.
And a lot of that I can agree with. Yeah, the best bit for me is the first R1 is just really quick and is amazing at roll catching. If you stagger that and someone's panic rolling, you'll catch them every time just like you would with a curved sword.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's... Oh, yep.
The weapon art on the Corvin is actually amazing. It's fast.
Too fast when you don't expect it.
Roll catch.
Oh, okay, that's pretty nice. Okay, so starting at the top of their list, there's a lot of things that I agree with and that I don't agree with. So they've put the Murky Hand Scythe at the top in a high tier place.
Yeah, that is not high tier. The Murky Hand Scythe though, it's good when you dark infuse it, but it's mid tier, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can do it on a dex build with 60 faith and then dark infuse in. It does do some pretty nice chip damage, but again, it's not exactly the longest. It's not exactly got a special moveset, but it does have the advantage of quick step. I'm not sure if I would put it all the way at the top of high tier, maybe low in high tier, because I think daggers deserve to be in high tier, or at least some of them do, because of just how quick they are. They shut down half the weapon classes in the game.
That is true. Every fast weapon in the game.
Yeah, they do. It's amazing. In the second place, they've... Oh, wrong weapon. They have the refined... Well, not refined, but the Corvian Great Knife, which, like you said before, is really long. Like, you compare that to your curved sword, it's almost there.
Yeah. Like, when I used that before this new patch, though, it was like I almost outranged the spear because of the disjointed hitbox on the first R1.
Oh, nice. I like that most of the Corvian weapons have that, like the scythe as well. But yeah, I've seen some really annoying people. I guess because it doesn't have the quick step, but the fact that you can go for these 2 and then roll catch with that, and it does have a little bit of shield damaging, it makes people think twice about trying to just block everything with a shield.
Yep.
I would probably put the Corvian Great Knife above the Murky Hand Scythe, though. Yes, I know it can do chip damage. Yes, I know it can, obviously, dark infused or with Dark Blade buff. But again, buffs for me, even if I'm not talking about strictly at the meta levels, I think buffs are very easy to just outtime.
That is true.
Okay, then the next one they've got up here is Aquamarine Dagger, and this is something I completely disagree with it being in a high tier. It's a mid-tier weapon at best, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, it's fast, the weapon art is okay, but it's so easy to outspace and track. You can, like, it's too easy to spam the weapon art, and people get too trigger happy with it, and it's just too easy to kill with it.
Oh yeah, I agree. I remember there was a guy that I fought once who used it, who, when I wasn't aware of the moveset, he really caught me off guard a couple of times, and he got in some pretty nice combos. But once you're aware of it, you're aware of the range, you're aware of how little damage it actually does and what the combo is, it becomes very easy to counter.
Yeah.
Okay, the next they have up in here is the Rotten Grue Dagger, which is something I know you like to use Blessed Infuse because it does some pretty nice damage.
It's the best blessed infused dagger in the game after what I've tested last time. Like, it does the most damage for a blessed infused, and I really like it. And it also have the quick step, and it's...
Oh yeah,
really
I guess it makes it really hard to catch you. If you've got a blessed offhand, Sun Princess Ring, you've got this blessed, and you're just running away from someone, with those quick steps as well, you're going to be really hard to track down.
And plus the Philonos Chime.
Oh yeah, yeah. If you've got that on, then you've just got all this stacked running away, and I've seen you recover a lot of HP in duels. So on the actual mid-tier front of this, they've put in the Bandit Knife, the Mail Breaker, the Tailbone Short Sword, the Harp, and the regular Dagger. Now there's actually three things that I definitely disagree with in their placements here, but I'll let you go first.
For me personally, I will take the Mail Breaker up to the high tier and the Dagger up to the high tier. Maybe the Bandit Knife, but I don't know.
No, I can agree with some of those as well, because Mailbreaker spamming the weapon art, it becomes really difficult to avoid because it roll catches and it combos twice, and if you're using stuff like Perseverance, you put that on, you go straight at them with the dagger, you go for that R1, they're going to roll, and then you can just start spamming the weapon art, and even if they're blocking with a shield, you're going to be doing damage through that.
Yep.
The dagger itself, with a Hornet Ring, you're doing 1100 to 1500 riposte, and that's something you cannot ignore. In 2v2 games, someone with a Chaos Dagger and a Hornet Ring, they can just run up behind someone. If you don't see them coming, they're doing 1500 damage, and they're insta-killing you.
Yeah, but it's dirty.
Yeah, it's very dirty. So
if
yeah,
you have the weight. If you have enough weight to use a dagger, I would just have a dagger in case you guard post them or whatever, and just switch to it.
Oh yeah, for sure. Especially if you get in parries, you can even use like Pine Bundles and then go for your riposte, and it does insane damage. So yeah, I would definitely put that into low-high tier. I'm not sure about Bandit Knife. I like it being at the top of because it's at the top of mid tier, because it has good reach, but it doesn't have the insane dagger riposte, even though it does still have some good riposte. But yeah, Mailbreaker I'd probably put into low-high tier, especially if they're putting stuff like Corvian Great Knife, Murky Hand Scythe up there, when the Mailbreaker is something that can actually be used quite competitively, even if it's got fairly low damage.
The only way after what I've seen to make the Mailbreaker useful, though, is that you have to pair it with a shield one-handed.
Yeah, or
Greatsword.
Or Perseverance.
Or Perseverance, yeah.
Yeah, well, either way, you're going to have to be good at shield or Perseverance. For low tier, they've put in Handmaiden Dagger, and the Parry Dagger. Bad tier, they've got Collars, Candlestick, and I don't think I would disagree with either of those three placements.
Me neither.
Okay. Well then, it looks like we're going to move on to a big boy class, which is probably one of the two contenders for best in the game, and that is Street Swords.
This is going to be fun.
Okay, so for me, I'll say how I think this is best played. You want to combine this with an offhand, so be it a shield or a crossbow or a parry tool, whatever you like. I'm going to say that crossbows and shields are going to be better than the parry tool because of how inconsistent parrying is in high-level play, especially with a little bit of latency. But when you have that of a shield, you can have amazing defensive weight. Because of the moveset of the straight sword and the amazing tracking, you're going to have a lot of offensive pressure. You've got R2 roll catches. If someone doesn't roll from you, you're going to just be doing huge damage. They can't roll around you because of the tracking. The phantom range is absolutely fantastic, and like I said, when you can just roll and then go for a block with a shield, which can do block quicker than you can roll again, you've got really good defense. And we'll talk about the individual weapons, but the playstyle is just one of the best. Like, you've got the pseudo free hit combo of the R1 R1 R2. If they don't roll, you can just R1 R1, then you can just follow them and try and catch their rolls with further R1s just by staggering them. And I've seen people take 2 hits, the opponent's gone for an R2, and then they just start mashing R1 and just absolutely kill people and turn shit around.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's also the fact crossbows. The crossbows just make it a fast ranged weapon. You can combine a crossbow of anything, it's amazing, but we'll talk about crossbows later. So let's talk about the best straight sword, which is, and that's best standalone straight sword, so we don't have to get into the Gotthard argument just yet, but Lothric Night Sword.
It's the best one. In terms of damage and in terms of range, it is clearly the best one.
And then you've also got the fact of how good it scales with Dark Infusion, much better than any other infusion, and the fact that it does higher riposte damage.
Yep. So it's like it is hands down the best straight sword in the game. We can get into the argument soon.
Yeah, I don't even think that's something we can even disagree on, even if we wanted to. It is just hands down the best one in the game because it's got the useful weapon art where it has the hyper armor that gives you 60% damage reduction. You're not going to hit that often, but against not the best players, you can catch their shields with the shield breaker, and you're going to get easy riposte against people who make mistakes. And it's just I think it's the most. Objectively, it's the most diverse weapon in the game because it can just be paired with anything. It can even be an offhand weapon to a lot of big weapons, and it just makes them amazing by the fact that you have the straight sword.
Yeah, like the straight sword is just a really good weapon overall, the weapon class in general.
Yep. And, well, these guys have placed it at the top of S tier, and I don't think anyone should be arguing against that. If you are, then you're probably just not exactly someone who's up to date on the top of the meta.
No, like if you think Dark Sword is still fucking good, then no.
Yeah, it's no comparison. Okay, in top tier, in low top tier, which is that they're top of the board above high tier, they've also put in longsword. I would actually argue that I would put that to top of high tier rather than low top tier, just because of the reach difference and the damage difference on infusions.
Yeah, it is not high tier at all, like top tier. I mean.
Yeah, I guess the argument can be made to put it in there because it is just a slightly shorter Lothric Knight Sword, but for me, I think the range difference, you really do need to separate. Like, if it's in top tier, it should be just functionally the best of the weapon class, the best in the game, on the best setups. And I just see the longsword as I can't invest 18 decks to go for the longer one.
Yeah.
Like, I've played against some really good curvesword people that I've lost because I've used longsword, and then I've duelled them again with the Lothric Knight Sword, and I've just won because it's so much easier to space against them. Because of how important spacing is, it really does change things.
And the difference between the longsword and Lothric Knight Sword is the second R1 has a more disjointed hitbox on the Lothric than longsword.
Ah, yes, the backswing on the second R1 does tend to have some crazy roll catching potential.
Yeah, even if you roll twice, the second roll you will get rolled up by the second R1.
Okay, so in high tier for the rest of the straight swords, what they've put in is Amri straight sword at the top, then the dark sword, then the ring knight straight sword, then we've got the barbed straight sword, the sunlight straight sword, the Ithil straight sword, and the broadsword. Just to speed things up, I named them all. I'm going to talk about the two ones that I think I really disagree with, which is the fact that they've put in the barbed straight sword and the Ithil straight sword into high tier when I believe them to be a mid-tier weapon, but we'll get into that. Is there anything that I've just listed out that you personally disagree with, and where would you move things?
The one thing that I've seen, I would take the dark sword at least one place down, and take the ring knight straight sword over Amri's straight sword.
I can agree with that, but what were your thought process before that?
Like, the ring knight straight sword, it has insanely disjointed hitbox. It's almost the same as a Lothric Knight Sword, which is, I think it's better in terms of, better than a longsword. So if they put the longsword in the top tier, I would at least switch the ring knight straight sword to the top tier. The only bad thing about the weapon though is that you can't infuse the weapon, but the weapon art will make up for it though if you're good to use it and you use it sparingly.
Yeah, I can agree with that because I think the only reason longsword made it into the top tier was because of the fact that it can be infused with dark. Ring Knight Straight Sword, when it first came out and people were just spamming this, most people had no idea how to move in on it, and because of the insane hyper armor, there was nothing they could do about it.
But now, it's actually something you can do though.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious that after the first two swings you can hit them, and yeah, it breaks the hyper armor. There's also quite a lot of recovery after the second set there, which you can also get in and get them. Yeah. But yeah, the fact that after those first two swings that you can just smack them, you can walk in and get them, it's pretty easy to do. And because of the telltale signs of the raising the sword, I know you can do it quite quickly, but there's still that, it's quite obvious when people go to it, because even if you don't see the sword get raised, you see the shield pop to the back, or if they're two-handing it, it's pretty obvious because of how garbage the two-hand moveset is.
Yeah, like I can just outspace it with almost my fist, it's easy.
I believe it. Okay, so Okay, for things that I'd move down, barbed straight sword, mostly because of reach. Like, it shouldn't be in high tier. It is just too short to really be competing with the other stuff in high tier. And if for straight sword, its damage is ridiculously low, and the frostbite gimmick, I don't think that deserves to put it into high tier.
Like, they haven't fixed the frostbite yet. Frostbite is still really bad.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about mid-tier. In here, they've got what would probably be the best straight sword in the game if it's scaled better, which is the Lothric Holy Sword. They've got the Morian Blade, which it can be quite useful on something where if you're going for like hyper mode builds, or just a straight sword switch to if you're low on health, or even just in your offhand if you've got a two-hand weapon. Then they've got the short sword, the Astora straight sword, and the Cleric's Candlestick. So what are your thoughts on most of the tiering here?
I'm mostly satisfied with the tiering right there. But the what's the second sword again? The Morian Blade. I
Yes.
feel like that's like technically that could be top tier. Not because of you using the weapon, but
Do you mean high
because of
tier
the
or top tier?
top tier.
So you mean like right at the top with Lothric Knight Sword?
More of like under like the third one, but like the lowest top tier. The reason why is not because of you're going to use the weapon, more is that you have it offhand with paired with a tier stone.
Okay, so as a
Get
tool
more
you'd
damage
put it
output.
in the top tier, but not as a weapon.
Yeah,
No,
not as a
that
weapon,
makes
no.
sense. Yeah, I pretty much agree with most of this. I would see Lothric Holy Sword. I want to place that in high tier because of the amazing pressure of the weapon art and the fact that you've still got the shield splitter. But I guess because of the damage, you can't really argue it. Even though it is insanely long, like the reach on it, I think
Yeah.
is the same as the Dark Sword. I might be
Yeah.
slightly mistaken about that though. Cleric's Candlestick, it would probably be the best weapon in the game if it did more damage because it's a straight sword that can cast magic. You can just run away homing Soul Mash and shield Turtle at the same time, and that's ridiculous.
Like, I wish that sword was better, and I also wish the Lothric Holy Sword was also better because of the weapon art itself. It's interesting.
Yeah, they deserve to be buffed, especially with the infusion buff. But I think that's something FromSoft overlooked a bit. In bad tier, they then got Broken Straight Sword, which I don't know. I'd actually put that in low tier just because of the fact that it's still got a straight sword moveset.
That is what I was actually going to say. Like, the only bad thing about the Broken Straight Sword is the R2, the sweeping on the R2.
Oh yeah, same as the broadsword.
Yeah, like if that thing didn't have the sweeping like it had the thrust, I would have actually put it on low mid tier because it's still a straight sword.
No, I definitely agree with that. Okay, so let's move on to worse straight swords, and by that I mean axes. So, are you someone who's used axes?
The only thing I've used is the low mid tier weapon, the high tier weapon. The one thing you paired with dark. I don't know what's it called then.
Oh, you talking about Murky Hand Scythe?
Yeah, Murky Hand Scythe. Yeah.
Oh, I don't mean Murky Hand Scythe. The one that looks like the one I'm holding, the Man Serpent Hatchet.
Yeah, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I actually really like this one. The problem that axes have is they have a bad running attack, which it's slow. They have bad R2s. The recovery is absolutely insane on them. They have a bad second R1. The tracking is just as bad as Scythe, but the first R1 is still just as good as straight sword. So if you can actually land that first R1, that's then when you go for that second one, and you can still have the same walking stagger pressure that you would do normally. And look, the chip damage is insane. Like I've got a physical build, and I know you're blocked with your weapon there, but 139 is about the same that you get when you dark infuse this and hit a shield, which is pretty insane. And not to mention the fact that it's also got the buff there. The reason I'm talking about Man Serpent Hatchet is they've put it in high tier at the bottom, and they've put Millwood Battle Axe at high tier at the top. I would flat out flip those two.
Yeah, hard. Like I don't like I don't like the weapon at all. The weapon art is really bad, in my opinion. Though, like if you know how to space in a game, if you have like a bit of brain cells in this game, that weapon is the easiest weapon to outspace ever, and you can do big punishes for people using that weapon in general.
Oh well, yeah, and the fact that you can shut down the weapon art just by blocking. Like, it doesn't stun, so you can't then go for your free hits. And I know if you're a good player, you can bait the roll and then you go for it, but it's just a running war cry, and it's something that it doesn't have high primer. You can just hit with an R1 and punish it. It's not unbeatable. Like, someone coming at you with this weird little run, you just hit them in the face with an R1, and it's not much they can do.
Yep.
If you catch it, it's nice.
But in terms of the list right here, when they are taking things in high tier, do they mean that the weapon in terms of like straight swords and the axes are
Well, what
equal?
they're saying is, if it's in high tier, it should be able to compete with every other weapon in high tier and beat everything in tiers below it pretty easily. So when they put Millwood Battle Axe in high tier, they're saying that it's just as good as a Dark Sword, it's just as good as a Ring Knight Straight Sword, etc., etc.
And that is where I disagree. Like that I disagree with that completely. Like there is nothing those weapons have on straight swords at all. Axes are just completely worse.
Yeah, if most straight swords are either S tier or A tier, I would put axes B tier and C tier for that reason.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's high tier for it. Moving on to their mid tier, they've put in the Butcher's Knife, the Dragon Slayer Axe, the Battle Axe, the Hand Axe, the Brigand Axe, the Thrall Axe, and Eleanor. In fact, they've just put in all the axes, so they've put all of the axes into. They're all pretty good.
Personally, I would have actually put, like, if I could made this tier list of myself, I would have put every axe in low tier. Like,
Most
axes are
of these I
probably
would.
good in terms, yeah. Like, I think that if people want to use axes, go for it, but there is no beneficial gain to actually use an axe against a good player or a straight sword user at all.
Yeah, I can
Even if you
agree.
care with the shield.
Like, I like axes, because, like I said, the first R1, if you stagger it, it's just as good as a straight sword, but the thing that the straight sword has over that is if they miss that first R1, that second one is still amazing. You can't just roll around them, whereas an axe, you can roll every hit on reaction and just keep rolling at them, whereas a straight sword, you have to roll away. So I'd maybe keep Dragon Slayer Axe mid tier because the fact that you can infuse that with lightning or bless and it does insane damage. You can buff it with lightning blade, it does insane damage. I would keep the Thrall Axe actually in mid tier because it has some really weird roll catching. It is really good and it also has quick step. It's actually when I used to do my old Pyromancer build back before the infusion buff, it was actually my favourite dark weapon to use because it did some really good dark damage with it as well.
Yeah, and if I remember correctly, that weapon had actually almost as fast moveset as the daggers before. Like the R1s was actually really fast compared to what it was before. Now it's really slow.
Actually, yeah, it's still pretty fast.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was really good, and it used to roll catch really well. I think it might even be faster two-handed. I'm not sure. It's still got the terrible, still got the terrible R2s. Still got the terrible running attack, but yeah, the first and the second R1 are actually better on the axe. If you look at the way it sweeps better than the big axes.
Yeah.
So yeah, the tracking's better on it, which is why they should be way above everything else in mid tier. Most of the others put them down to low tier, especially the Butcher's Knife. Like it does really good infusion on a strength build, but it can't be you can't infuse it. It's just good on strength build. It's S, but you can't infuse it, which is what I think lets it down.
Yeah.
Okay then, curved swords. This is your baby, so I'm gonna let you go for it.
Okay, the first curve sword, Pontiff Knight Third Sword, and the Demon Scar. I agree with actually both of those. In S tier, like in high tier, top tier.
Mm-hmm.
But the Pontiff Knight Third Sword is just better. The first R1 is longer. Weapon art is superior. It has insane range. R2s, never use those. There's no reason to use those. Rolling attacks is bad on every third sword, so never use rolling attacks. But in terms of how to keep pressure with the curved swords in general, like keeping pressure with the curved sword and also being defensive, you can do the both at the same time. There's just there is no weakness at all by using the curved sword, in my opinion. If you are just a good player overall, you should win against every setup. But there's a big but here, and that is straight swords. If you meet a really good straight sword user paired with a shield, it's hard to win against. You need to play your A game.
Well, yeah, I can agree that curved swords are the best solo weapon in the game. The fact that their two-handed moveset is just so good. It's unbelievable. Their running attack's amazing. The R1 pressure's amazing. Just walking at people and then just roll catching, it's absolutely fantastic. It's so fast that you can reaction roll catch. Most of the weapon arts are actually pretty good. Like even this one will actually combo into more R1s if you land it. The Pontiff Knight one's got some big range on it, but again you have to be careful if you go for the second R2 because it leaves you open with a lot of recovery.
The only time you should use the second R2 is actually after you R1 and you know that your opponent is going to roll straight backwards because you can get a really nasty hit on them.
Oh yeah, I agree. One thing you have to be careful with curve swords is something I learned ages ago, and what a lot of people still complain about because they don't quite realise how it works is the running attacks have a lot of forward momentum if you're not touching your opponent's model when you start it. So from here, I'll go forward really fast, but if you're touching them when you go for it, you practically stand still. So you just lose all momentum. So you have to know your spacing to when you initiate it to keep that forward momentum.
Yeah. Yeah, for me, using a curved sword, it's easy to learn but hard to master. That's how I would.
Like, there's probably only one curved sword user in the game besides you that I could name that actually gives me trouble. Even if there's players just as good as he is, the fact that they're just not as good with the curved sword in general just means that they're normally much easier to beat. And they don't know how to swap from defensive to aggressive. Like, some people are good at playing defensively and just always going for punishment, but very few players are very good at just having the balls, just walk at your opponent, only roll when they swing, and only swing when they roll to go for roll catches. It is an art to itself. And yeah, I definitely agree. Pontiff Knight curved sword is the best one there. I will make an argument for Demon Scar, though. The damage potential that you can get with Demon Scar is higher, and the Fire Surge means you can be a lot more harassing than you can with just the Pontiff Knight curved sword.
That is true. The one thing that my argument would be against it is that the range in every attack aspect is shorter.
Yeah, it's definitely shorter. I've had people say, some people say it's the same length as the scimitar. I've had other people say it's slightly less. But yeah, either way, it's definitely shorter than Pontiff Knight curved sword.
The one thing the small amount of time I've used the Demon Scar, the one thing I've felt, I don't know if I don't quote me on it, but I feel like when you roll catch with the Demon Scar, I feel like they get like the hyper roll, like when you get the hyper armor in the roll, much more frequently in a way.
Yes, I've noticed that for some reason it doesn't stun on roll catch as easy as Pontiff Knight curved sword, but I'm not sure of the mechanics behind that. I don't know if that's reach related or because it's pure fire and elemental. I have no idea what that is.
Like, I've tested it sometimes, and you get the hyper armor roll more frequently also on Pontiff Knight curved sword if you have over 35 in poise, but I don't know. I still don't know what procs it at all.
Yeah, for people who don't know what we're discussing, on medium rolls and fat rolls, towards the end of it, you actually have hyper armor. So if you get roll caught at the end of your roll, you don't get staggered or stun locked, whereas if you get caught at the middle part, just as you're coming out of the iframes, you do.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'd argue for Demon Scar is there's probably only 3 good pyromancies, which is Black Flame, Fire Surge, and I will make an argument for Chaos Bed Vestiges, because every big weapon in the game, yes, I know you can outspace and R1 them, but Chaos Bed Vestige makes punishing them at any range pretty easy. If you time it right, you can punish any R1 on any hyper armor weapon from a distance. And yes, I know if you're playing it right, you'll be in their face anyway, and you'll be reactively punishing and outspacing them. But it's easier with Chaos Bed Vestiges, in my opinion, and I've used it to roll catch people panic rolling so many times. Like, people that even call themselves good players, like, who play against tournament players who've said they're good players, I've called them Chaos Bed Vestiges panic rolling, and even if you time it right, just spacing it, I've had people like even yourself who've gone for running attacks and just run straight into a Bed Vestiges for a good 600 to 700 damage.
And that is so annoying. And the one thing that's really good on Demon Scar, though, is that let's say you have the Black Flame.
Yeah.
And you do 1R1 and Black Flame, boom, you can, like, it's insane. Let's say you do the R1 and you trade with the R1 first and you still keep trading. If you have the Sage Ring on, you can actually get out the Black Flame.
Oh, from stun?
From stun, yeah.
I've tried that, even though I have Bellvine, and it normally gets me absolutely pooned every time. I guess it's if your opponent hesitates for a fraction of a second and they're not mashing R1, then you can get off the Black Flame in that scenario. But for the Scar, the combo that I like is R1, Black Flame, which is the R2, and then if you go for the Weapon Art, if someone panic rolls or doesn't even go for the roll, some people like to try and R1 after they've been hit twice, you then get to catch them with that full Weapon Art, and because of the pool, it actually resets them for another R1 combo. So you can do R1 Black Flame, Weapon Art, R1 Black Flame again, and it does about 1500 damage if you hit all of it, and if you miss the Black Flame, because they can roll the last Black Flame, but a lot of people don't, you're still doing at least 1100.
That is dirty.
Yeah, I've done it. I had videos of me doing it to people who I'm not going to name names because people might get annoyed if I'm calling them out from videos that don't exist anymore. But yeah, it's absolutely hilarious. Okay, so let's talk about the high tier then. In here, I disagree with at least 3 of the picks. So what they've done is at the top of high tier, which is absolutely ridiculous, is they've put Follower's Saber. Below that, they've put Scimitar. Then below that, they've put the Carthus Shotel, then the Carthus Curved Sword, and then the Rotten Grue Curved Sword. Thoughts?
Yeah. I disagree with everything in actually that tier, in my opinion.
Okay.
The reason why is that at least Scimitar should be top tier. The only reason why is because it still have the same speed advantage as the Pontific Curved Sword does and the Demon Scar. The Follower's Saber, Carthus Curved Sword, the Rotten Grue Curved Sword, and the Carthus Shotel.
Rotten Grue Curved Sword has the fast one, I believe.
Or the ranges. No, it doesn't.
Yes. See?
It does?
Yeah. Whee! If anything, the Rotten Grue Curved Sword can probably outspace the Follower's Saber and the Carthus Curved Sword because it still has the forward momentum, which the Follower's Saber and Carthus Curved Sword does not. So you don't take as big a steps. So you've actually got less range.
True. But I would like every curved sword with the speed advantage on the R1 spam is just a better curved sword.
Yeah, I would definitely put Rotten Grue Curved Sword above them all just for the fact that it's faster and it can go further.
Yeah, and personally I would take the Scimitar up 1 tier because you can actually infuse the Scimitar with Dark.
Yeah, and you can do...
And it's just, let's say you fight against a board and sword user, you have a Dark Scimitar and a Chaos Scimitar in case they swap out the shields. You can still just chip through their shield and just be on the defensive and just chip.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I would put Follower's Saber, Carthus Shotel, Carthus Curved Sword down to mid tier. Probably move Scimitar to the top of high tier or the bottom of top tier. And I would probably keep the Rotten Grue Curved Sword in high tier.
Yeah, I agree.
Okay, so mid tier for curved swords, we've got the Storm Curved Sword, the Falchion, the Painted Guardian Curved Sword, the Crimson Moon Sword, and the Shotel. I think they all have the bad moveset, except for maybe the Shotel, and actually I think even the Shotel does. But the Painted Guardian Curved Sword, which has incredibly small range, I think it's actually might even outspace Carthus and Followers just because of the fact that it's got the more forward momentum. But don't quote me on that.
Yeah, like, I don't like neither of those curved sword just because of the speed, really, and the range. It's bad. I wish they were better, but
nerfs happened.
You can do about it. Yeah.
Yep. Wait, well, you've been the best weapon class in the game since launch, and there was nothing you can do about it. Half of them got absolutely decimated by that nerf.
Yeah, like, I don't think that nerf should like hit that hard on the curved sword. Like, if it should hit, just hit every curved sword at least. Make just the curved sword class bad in my opinion. Like Carthus, yes, it was really OP when it was OP, but
yeah, I think they could have just. See, I don't think they should have hit it. Maybe they could have put the damage in line with the Pontiff Knight Curved Sword when you had an infused Carthus. So that way, you'd have to decide between being able to infuse it for chip or the reach of the Pontiff Knight Curved Sword. I don't think they should have nerfed the class as hard as they did, because stuff like the Crescent Moon Sword didn't deserve that nerf because of how low the damage is. If anything, that sword deserves a buff.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd actually move anything in mid-tier. I'd put stuff into mid-tier that they put into high-tier, but I don't think I'd move anything down. Because like I said, best moveset in the game, even if it's been heavily nerfed.
That is true. Like, I agree with the mid-tier at least. Yeah.
No, that's good. Spears and pikes, then, something they put in together. They've actually put one of these into top tier, which I think is laughable. But Saint Bident, they've put into top tier. So the way I would describe this weapon class is worse rapiers.
Yeah.
It's just slower rapiers with more range. So it's good for running attacks, it's good for poking, you can pair them with a shield. One-handed I think is stronger than two-handed, whereas two-handed will do more damage. Most of their weapon arts are jokes and easy to parry across the board here. Some of them are okay infused, but they one-handed bounce off stuff like Perseverance, which makes them a bit of a chore to use. So let's talk about Saint Bident being in top tier.
I think that is laughable. Like, that weapon, I've never ever touched that spear at all just because it's bad. Like, I don't like it. The best spear, in my opinion, is the one you're holding right now.
Ah, plow.
Yeah, the plow. It's just like in this nerf I mean the patch that's right now. That spear is the best spear in the game, hands down, because of the reach and the damage.
Now, I'm going to give you the argument against that, even though it's not my argument, and that's because people are going to say Saint Bident is longer and does similar damage with the same infusions.
Yeah, like, they can say that. I can't, like, I had never used spears at all, but in my opinion though, and I just like the, if it's longer but it has a similar damage, I don't know. I just like the plow better.
Well, I agree with you because I know for a fact that the 4-prong plow actually has a wider hitbox because it has a disjointed hitbox, meaning it hits wider than the visible weapon does, which the Saint Bident doesn't. And that's the main reason why it is the best one. And I've seen people use this quite hysterically. There was one guy who I've seen use it as a backup weapon to a straight sword, and what he would do, and you'll know who I'm talking about, is he'll go for 2 R1s and then he'll swap and go for a running attack, and he can do it in like one motion. I have no idea how he does it so quickly, but it's like he does the running attack like it was an R2 on the straight sword. It's so quick.
That is dirty.
Well, it's the guy who taught you how to play, so yeah, I'm surprised you haven't seen him do that.
You haven't done it to me though, actually.
Oh, okay. I actually, to be fair, I've only seen him do it twice, and that was in the same fight club. But I actually like the main hand form from plow with an offhand Lothric Knight sword, because you've got that really good running attack from it, the poke speed, and then you've got the fact that it's straight sword backup, because all spears are easy to counter just by rolling into them.
Yeah. Like, in terms of peering stuff though, like peering straight sword with like almost any weapon is just insane.
Yeah, a straight sword makes everything good.
Yeah.
But I think the way you have to pair it is you need to pair it with something that adds something to the straight sword. Like a curved greatsword can add something to a straight sword pairing. A spear can add something to a straight sword pairing. Crossbow can add something. Shield can add something, etc., etc. Like you pair it with a greatsword and it does nothing for either of them.
No, because you didn't have any hyper armor.
Yeah, it doesn't gain anything.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'd move Saint Bident down to high tier. If you want to keep it in high tier, that's questionable, because I know on PC that you can backstab the R1s. Running attacks are pretty easy to backstab as well on a good connection. On a good connection on PS4, I can backstab running attacks, and I can walk around people R1 spamming and just backstab them. Like, a good connection is pretty easy to punish these things. For high tier itself, they've put 4-prong plow, then the Lothric Knight long spear, which I have no idea why that one's there, the Ring Knight spear, my favourite spear, the Gargle Flame spear, which unfortunately did get a nerf, but it's still just as long as the Saint Bident. They then got the Lothric War Banner, which I guess because you can infuse it and it has a good weapon art for buffing team damage, and interestingly enough, the Great Lance, which I'll talk about that. But I think most of these I'm pretty happy to keep in here. Like, I'd put them B or A tier, but because they only have high tier and top tier above mid tier, I think they're good there. Thoughts?
I would maybe push up the Ring Knight spear at least one spot.
Oh yes, keeping it in high tier, but above Lothric Knight long spear.
Yeah.
No, I'd agree with that. I don't know why Lothric Knight Longspear is in there. It's got the Pike moveset, which is... I know they buffed the tracking, but it's still slow.
Yeah.
Great Lance. Great Lance...
thing, though...
Oh, yeah, go for it.
One thing I was going to kick. The Great Lance, that's actually the one I was going to go for. Like, that thing is just insanely slow. There's no reason... Like, that is not high tier at all. Impossible. That can't be high tier. That's a fault. They just flopped, I think.
Well, it could be slightly meme related because that got to the finals of the PC World Tournament.
That is... Oh man, dude.
But it was mostly carried by Castus and the fact that most of the people that he fought until the finals weren't exactly the best guys in the tournament. Like, all the Korean players went out round 1, And then this guy managed to get a bye because his opponent didn't show up, who most people were confident would have beaten him. And then in his side of the bracket, all the people he beat were the sort of they were good players, but they weren't the top of it, whereas all the top players were in the other half of the bracket, so only, of course, one of them got through. So it was one of those things, like, did Great Lance actually make it into there, or did someone use the Castus? Because most of his damage, 80% of it, was actually coming from his Chaos and Dark infused Castus. And what they would do is they'd have Dark and Chaos weapons. So even if you had like the 100% Dark shield, they would swap to the Chaos version, and they just swap between them because you can't. You notice a shield swap, but you don't exactly notice a swap on the weapons. And it was quite funny to see it get there. Like, I saw someone pull out a Cathedral Knight Great Shield at one point, and then he just swapped to Chaos, so he didn't see that. So he only has like 57 fire resistance, so he was taking more damage than he would have been. But it does have hyper armor. Two-handed, it has the same hyper armor as hammers, which I know has fucked you up the first time you played against it because you didn't expect it coming.
Yep.
But at the same time, it is slow. Multiple R1s can be parried. You can backstab it. But you put a straight sword in the offhand, and it is actually pretty good at covering it, but then it doesn't have the hyper armor. So it's a bit of a trade. Like, you can use it as the R2 catch, but then they're going to be faster spears that are better than that.
True.
So I guess the argument can be made to put that down to mid-tier, but I still think for gimmick reasons it is quite funny to see it in high tier.
Like, it can just be there. Like, it's still bad though, but yeah.
Yeah, but it being there is what you're saying is it can compete with Ring Knight Straight Sword. It can compete with Manservant Hatchet, Corvian Great Knife. It can compete with Washing Pole. Like, it's a weird placement to have it in there compared to the other stuff. Like, as spears go, yeah, it's not bad having it there, even though it's like the only lance. But as the actual high tier goes in general, it's a bad placement in my opinion.
Yeah.
Okay, so mid-tier, we've got the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear, which for some reason got nerfed recently. We've got the... Dragon Slayer Spear got nerfed. Next to that, we've got Dragon Slayer Sword Spear, which has always been pretty meh. Then we've got the Partisan, which has the exact same moveset as the Ring Knight Spear, so it's R2's combo. We've got the Rotten Groove Spear, the Pike, Tailbone Spear, the Wing Knight Spear, the Aster's Spear, yep, get that right, and GRS, I can't remember which spear that is.
I don't know. Never used it. Never going to use it.
It's slow on mid-tier, that's all we know. They put right to the bottom of barely mid-tier. Okay, is there anything that you disagree with this being in mid-tier?
Personally, if I was going to look at the spears in general across the board, I would actually take the top tier weapons down to mid tier in terms of spears and just keep them there. In general, I would probably do the Dragon Slayer Sword Spear, bump that up one place because the Dragon Slayer Spear got nerfed in general.
Sword Spear or Spear? Because which one are you talking about? The one that's also a halberd, or just the actual one that's a spear?
Halberd would I would take up the halberd one spot above.
Okay, that's interesting, because I guess halberds are... I would say they're better than spears. In fact, that one-handed it's a spear, two-handed it's a halberd. But annoyingly, you need more poise than other halberds, which I don't think should be.
The reason why is because of the running attack, really. You still have the same running attack.
Oh yeah, you still keep the spear running attack. Actually, yeah, that does give it a really good advantage over other halberds.
Yeah.
Low tier, they've then got Spear, Yorkshire Spear, and Follower's Javelin, which they're all pretty terrible. I don't know if I put them down to bad tier, but I'm not going to argue about them being in low tier.
Nope.
Yeah, Spears again, like I said, it's just poke. Going for R2s, yeah, you can roll catch, but someone just walks at you and presses R1, or they can backstab you pretty easily. Yeah, running attacks are good, like katanas, but a good player, if you run at someone who's going for a running attack, you actually just run past them, and then you get 2 hits or a backstab. And yeah, most of the weapon arts are jokes. I do really like the Tailbone Spear. Before DLC 1, I actually used to use this on my meta south as I had it as a secondary swap because I used to love the finish of it because it was so rare. Most people didn't know how this worked, and it actually lingers quite a bit. So people who would roll at you would still get hit by it. Like, the damage was terrible, but it was hilarious to use. like on an S stock build or something, with like you're using pokes, so you have leering on anyway, then yeah, it was pretty good. Okay then, so let's move on to katanas. They have nothing in top tier, which I'm not going to hate too much on, but let's talk about the playstyle. So, have you ever used katanas?
Yes, when the washing pole was master, almost.
Okay,
like when it was
so
good, I used katanas, yeah.
okay,
So
so
I'm
let's
a
talk
bit
about the washing
familiar
pole.
with the washing pole, like, the only thing you did when you used the washing pole when it was good, and like probably now when you also use katanas, was you overused the running attack. The reason why, because the running attack was so fucking fast at that time. You didn't have like the increased running attack speed. It's the same thing. Like it was really fast. It had the best range in the game. So in terms of outspacing potential, and the weapon at R1 could roll catch. And the weapon at R2 is just really good to have for mind games in general. Like they know that you have the parry, so they're going to not spam at you because they know that you can actually parry them, which is like really good psychological thing.
Oh yeah, I've seen people parry with this on the third hit of someone going for straight sword spam, which is pretty good. The roll catching, like you go for running attack, they immediately roll, and then you go for the weapon on that. It's really good for roll catching. Yeah, since it got nerfed, the fact that the way you used to play it is you used to just do nothing, wait for your opponent to whiff, and then you'd go for a running attack, and that was it, and then you'd get out there. Like I've seen people who would never engage, they'd spend the whole fight just...
Yeah, like before there was like nothing you could do, because after you was done with the running attack, and the running attack, you remember how fast it was?
Yeah.
When you finished the running attack, you'd actually just roll away, and there was nothing they could do at all.
Yeah, the recovery was so good.
Yeah, like even when you were using Karthus, when it was actually really good, it was hard to finish.
No, that's
like
absolutely completely true.
Yeah, like every time when I was using Karthus and the dude was at one hit left, I would just switch, like hard swap my Karthus to the washing pole just to get the disjointed hitbox R1. Like you won at that range. Like let's say you're at full health and someone's using a washing pole when it was good running attack. There's nothing you can do. Maybe
yeah,
if you were using like shields, but if you infused the weapon, then again you could just poke.
I know the two-handed moveset doesn't combo, so if someone does land one, they can't then get the second one without them rolling. Actually, does it do that one-handed? Yeah, even one-handed. Okay, so the R1's never combo, so that's a pretty huge damn nerf. So if you're using this and you get an R1, you might as well be getting ready to go for the weapon arc, because you're not going to be hitting them otherwise. Something they've actually put above the washing pole is the Frey Blade, which a lot of people would be butthurt about, but the fact that the R1 true combos into the weapon art and it can't be parried, and if people panic roll, you then got the range of that, along with the running attack spans. Like I've seen someone beat you once just by them running away from you the whole time, and every time you went for a running attack, they would then just hit you and blah 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 blah, and that was it. That was all they did.
Yep.
And I think that's really good. I'm definitely okay with the Frey Blade being in high tier. R1's combo, one-handed, it actually has a little bit more range than it does two-handed, so you can R1, R1, and you can then even go for the R2s. Two-handed, like I said, R1, weapon R2, and then if they panic roll, you go for that beastie, which is actually pretty good if you free aim it as well. They've also put in the Ushu Katana and the Chaos Blade into high tier, which are just basically shorter washing poles that combo on R1s. I don't think I would move them down.
No, they can just stay there in general. Like, still katanas in terms of, like, if I would rank a class from what it stands right now, like what we have gone through, I would take curved sword at number 1 just because I'm using them and I'm more used to the curved sword. But straight swords, like in general, like, it's a really good class compared to the curved sword. Like, it's almost the same thing. If you're a good straight sword user, go for using straight sword instead of curved sword. If you're better with curved sword, use curved sword. For me at least, I would take curved sword at number 1, straight sword number 2, and katanas number 3, just because it's a katana in general. But dagger again, it's just really good.
That's some good rational thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Now I know the R1s aren't exactly the best tracking on them, but they're fast, so they're very usable. Like, katanas are a good class, but they're not OP. Like, I don't understand why the average player who's not into the competitive side of the game seems to think katanas are overpowered, and they re-out every time they see it. I have no idea where that comes from. I don't ever remember, except in Dark Souls 2 when Chaos Blade got the counter hit buff, them being that ridiculous. But yeah, a lot of people have a lot of vitriol for it.
Yeah.
And mid-tier, they then just put all the other katanas, which every katana is essentially the same. Some of them I'll actually put in low tier, like Bloodlust, the Dark Drift, and the other. They're not great. I don't know if I keep them in mid tier, but I wouldn't make I'm not going to exactly argue to put them in low tier.
Nah, like me personally, I wish the Bloodlust was actually good from the start of the game, just because it's so cool. Like the katana looks so cool, and the weapon up is just dope.
Yeah, no, I completely agree.
But that's not reality.
Well, that's katanas.
Yeah, no.
Moving on after katanas, we have greatswords, and I disagree with so much in here. So,
Yeah.
do you want to go for greatswords, or do you want me to explain the way I think is the best way to play them?
Oh, I rarely use greatswords. For me, general greatswords is just a worse two-handed straight sword gameplay. Like it's the playstyle. Like it's the same thing with straight swords and curved swords. Like let's say you use scales and I use this one. Do the R1 spam. And let me use the R1. It's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it's the same moveset, but they have hyper armor, and the one-handed one just isn't as good because it doesn't have the same sweeping tracking.
And if people in the comment section, please tell me in one tournament that someone you know have been in and they have used two-handed straight sword and won. Like, two-handed straight sword is better than any great sword, in my opinion. But there's a lot of good... I know I'm going to piss off a lot of people right now, but in my opinion, two-handed straight swords is just better in general than great swords. And I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a lot of things I can agree with that. Okay, there's a huge problem here is... Okay, hyper armor people think is OP at mid-level games in the arena. And if you're in the arena and you're just R1 mashing with hyper armor against anyone who's not exactly good, you're probably going to win quite easily.
Please... Let me just... we can actually do that right now. R1 spam.
I was mashing R1 and yeah, you immediately interrupted the first R1. Like, you outspaced it. I even thought that was within your distance. Like, my goodness. The other one that's... Okay, so what I think is quite funny. The only way you can really use a greatsword is defensively, and you have to hope you predict a trade, and that's it. Because otherwise you're just eating damage. You have no way to be the aggressor. And if you are, you're probably going to get punished because... The running attack actually has quite late startup on the spin. Like, if I start the running attack, as I'm spinning, if you are one quick enough, you actually interrupt even if I have the hyper armor to go through it. Like, literally, the second you see me start swinging, just... See, look, you even interrupt... Ah, goodness. I have 30 poise, so I should be able to take it, but I can't. Like, he can interrupt it because it's coming in. And if you do it cleanly, you can actually catch them during the swing. I did a video yesterday on it, and every time someone kept trying to do a running attack to me, I just hit him with the Demon Scar and interrupted him. The dude was in, like, full exile, so he had a plus 40 poise, and my little Demon Scar was interrupting it every time. Oof. So, yeah, I would probably move almost everything down a tier. So let's start by saying they've put Gale's Greatsword in top tier, which what they're saying is it's just as good as Pontiff Knight Curved Sword, it's just as good as Demon Scar, it's almost as good as Lothric Knightsword, and no, I would put that at the best to the bottom of high tier or the top of mid tier.
Yeah.
Because the one good gimmick that Gale's has is if you land an R1, you can then go weapon art and then this. If you miss and you go for the weapon art, after that you are left so open. Ha! You made the wrong time on the punishing there. But you actually have to punish just after here because I couldn't even roll. That's how slow the recovery is on that. So if you miss that, you do not go for the weapon art, sir. I've heard people say that the R2 immediately combos it into the R1, but it does not. Did you see how long that is? That surely you can avoid it. But the thing is, if I miss this R2, I reckon you can interrupt the hyper armor before I can get the R1. So,
nope, I couldn't.
Ooh, so if I land it, but what happens if you outspace it? So if I miss this, oh, actually. No, that one is true. Okay, so you actually keep the hyper armor from all of the poke to the start of the R1. That's interesting. So, okay, maybe
let's try to outspace something. I'm determined to use it.
So you can hit and dodge, but Yeah, I don't get interrupted, which is that's nice. That's nice. So it does have one quite useful thing. But like I said, the running attack is so easy to punish. Weapon art very easy to punish. Just staggered R1s. The amount of recovery. Oh, I'm fat rolling. The amount of recovery on it is it's going to be very easy to interrupt. Yeah, I would, like I said, I'd put that to the bottom of high tier, maybe the top of mid tier if you're being generous, because shields 100% shut it down. It has no chipping.
Yeah.
Okay, so high tier. Oh my goodness, I don't even know where to begin here. There's at least 4 that I'd flat out drop a tier. Maybe one I'd drop 2 tiers, and I might even push everything down to the bottom of high tier, or maybe the top of mid tier as well. So, okay, so I'll read this out in the order that they put this here, and I'm going to try not to laugh at some of these. They've put Black Knight Sword as the top of high tier. Then Wolf Knight Greatsword, which has no gimmicks that are useful. Onyx Blade, which is a hilariously inefficient weapon. Claymore, I can agree with that one being in high tier. Then they've got the Hollow Slayer Greatsword, which has the best R1s in the game for greatswords, and you can actually make a really good build with 26 strength and 40 dex, because of the way it caps at 40. Greatsword Judgment, which I wouldn't put above the Moonlight Greatsword. Warner's Holy Sword, for some reason, even though it does pure physical damage and it has no useful weapon art or R2s or rolling attacks, but for some reason they put that in high tier. And at the bottom of high tier they put Moonlight Greatsword. Okay,
There's
oh my god.
3 weapons for me that I think is good in terms of the great sword class. There are 3 weapons that I think it's actually good compared
From
to a lot of weapons.
what I just read out, or from in general?
From from what you just read out, that's the Black Knight Sword because of the hyper armor gimmick, and that's because of the gimmick.
Yep.
Claymore, because Claymore is just, it's decent, and the Hollow Slayer Greatsword. Before, though, Hollow Slayer Greatsword was insanely good. Like, like for me, it felt like it had invincibility. Like, you couldn't actually interrupt anything. Like, they had just hyper armor all the way.
Oh yeah, old Poise, before they redid it, it was the blending machine. It was so hard to get in and just punish it. It was, it was ridiculous.
Like, they nerfed the greatsword class hard, which I don't think they should.
Well, actually, they buffed it, but it almost like indirectly nerfed it, because basically everything that didn't have this moveset got a 5% buff increase, so then the Hollow Slayer just stopped being special. But it has quicker recovery in startup for the hyper armor, which is why it's still good in my opinion. Like there's a lot of them I wouldn't put above. Like, it doesn't do the damage of Gales, but I would consider this better than Gales.
Yeah, that is better than Gales. The one thing I think is better than Gales is Black Knight Greatsword and the Hollow Slayer. That's better than Gales for sure.
I guess the argument is people are going to say the reach, the fact that it's got the R2s, which Black Knight doesn't, because this one won't combo immediately into R1 with the hyper armor, so I guess it makes that R2 kind of safe, but again, you were able to hit me and then roll out for the R1, so that's not exactly good. No idea why this thing's here. It's got the bad R2, the weapon art is just atrocious, like... Oh, that's backstabbable in reaction. Everything is terrible. So, Black Knight Sword, I'd move down to the top of high tier. Wolf Knight Greatsword, that's somewhere in the middle of mid tier. Onyx Blade, I would put to mid tier, maybe even to low tier, just because it can't use support. I'll talk about that in a second. Ornir's Holy Sword, what the hell is that even doing there? I'd drop that all down as well. Greatsword Judgment, Moonlight Greatsword, I like them at the bottom of high tier, but I couldn't make a strong enough case for them. Claymore, yes, I would keep that in there, because Dark Infused, it does some really good damage. It's not exactly got the best weapon art, but as greatswords go, it's got good range, good damage, good infusion, so it's probably one of the best infusible ones, if not the best elemental one. Okay, so let's talk about what I think greatswords really need, and I think greatswords need support, because like you said, the two-handed moveset is just the straight sword one, but with hyper armor. The thing where I think that they can get quite good is if you mix it up. So the fact that you can use something like the Dragon Head and switch to one-handed to go for those quicker ones, and then use the weapon art of the Dragon Head, or even a crossbow or an infused Casus or something like that. You can mix up their playstyles. But again, that's kind of relying on something else. Like, I think the crossbow is actually a really good offhand for this, because if you're going for these slow hits and your opponent's just always reactive rolling, switch to one hand, head with a crossbow, 2-hit combo, pretty good.
There's actually one thing you can do in between the two-hand R1s. You can actually, if like, that weapon has insane much like hyper armor. So if you do like just R1 spam, oh, you don't have enough poise at all. That sucks. Like if you
No,
have
I do have enough
can
poise
just...
to R1 through. Because we did it earlier.
Second R1 then.
See?
Yeah.
But
like,
yeah, you're able to hit me and still get out. It's like, oh god, great swords. I know there is one guy who's still saying that he thinks they're top tier because he made it to the finals of the PS4 World Tournament, but he lost to a scythe. Like, scythes are longer, have no hyper armor, they outspace greatswords. Honestly, I would argue scythes are better than greatswords.
Yeah,
Which
like...
we'll talk about later, but you must be glowing about the scythe winning a world tournament, Mr. Nostradamus. But we'll get to that later. Okay, mid tier. Okay, they put Twin Prince's greatsword, which I think, if it had better scaling for faith, would be the best of the greatswords because it's really long and it's the only greatsword that can apply pressure because of that weapon art. They've also put in the Drakeblood Greatsword, which has the Hollow moveset, the Bastard Sword, Flame Burge, the Executioner's Greatsword, Storm Ruler. They put Firelink Greatsword in mid-tier. Yeah, Firelink Greatsword, and that's all of them. Some of those I would actually move down to low tier, like the Drakeblood Greatsword is quite short, the Executioner's Greatsword is pretty short. Storm Ruler, I'd move that down as well. Flame Burge and Bastard Sword, maybe, but I guess you could argue for it to be low mid-tier. Definitely agree that Twin Prince's Greatsword is the best of the mid-tier Greatswords. And anything that you see there?
Nah, I think it's Storm Ruler should go down just because it's the Storm Ruler, but still it's a Greatsword in my opinion. Like if there's something that I wish could like go down, personally I would just take every greatsword down one spot. Like,
yeah, I would
tier, like a high tier one. Like all the greatswords in high tier should at least be mid tier. It's a meh weapon. Like the greatswords is a meh class. If you like to use them, go for it. I'm not going to judge you because you like to use greatswords. Like you can still win on most of your matches against randoms and pontiff, but like we've shown you, like everything you do with the greatsword, you can just do better. You can just do a better job with the curved sword. You can outspace a greatsword. Yeah, like you can just outspace everything. There's nothing they have on any weapon.
No, that's absolutely true. I guess if you're talking about just against random people, yes, it is. Like, even with a tad of latency, you are going to eat people. Like, if you want to just R1 spam against R1 spammers, then definitely pick a greatsword. But in the tournament setting, the amount of work that you'd have to be putting in to be competitive, you're holding yourself back. You'd be 100 times better using a straight sword and a shield. Like, to the amount of required. Like, I'm not saying you can't be the best player in the game with the greatsword, because if you weren't, you could beat all the other better players. Then I guess you're just putting your handicap on yourself, because if you're beating them with the greatsword, you would probably kill them in seconds with any other weapon class.
Yep. There's one thing that I think the greatsword is good though, and that is a invasion weapon because of the hyper armor.
Oh yeah, against multiple people, that's actually pretty good. Just in case people are confused, we are talking about in 1v1 duel scenarios. Yes, 2v2 can change it slightly, but not enough to say make ultra greatswords not terrible. Like, poise matters more in 2v2 environments, but it doesn't exactly change it, because if you fight two people who know how to punish your hyper arm weapon, they're going to do it just twice as efficiently. Okay, so curved greatswords. I actually think these are better than greatswords, which I know can be a bit taboo, but for me, I see it the same as they have a better running attack, so they can apply pressure, and they have one-handed poise, so they can be combined with something like a straight sword or crossbows very easily, and I think that makes them much better.
Same. The one thing that if they put Gales in the top tier, I would put the what's the new DLC?
Harold curved greatsword.
Yeah, like if they put Gales, they should at least put that one at top tier at least, because that has the most disjointed hitbox in any of the great curved sword classes. Like the on the running attack, like the running attack is dirty. That's the only thing that I feel about it.
Yeah, and the weapon art as well is actually pretty decent.
Do the jumping one, and if you jump, there's nothing you can do.
Ow, ow. And then we fat roll panic. I like that they actually gave it the little chicken run. I actually think that's pretty funny. I like the little steps you take. Yeah, see, they put the Exile Greatsword, the Herald Curved Greatsword, the Murakumo, and the Old Wolf Curved Sword into high tier. Maybe there's a case for Herald Curved Greatsword. The others, I don't really see them being in high tier worthy. I'd all put them all in mid tier. Maybe Exile because of damage for invasions. You might barely scrape into high tier, but I think it's just too easy to punish. Like, I've got a 30% win ratio against B-dubs with them, but that's still that was fluky. Like, I caught them with gimmicks and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd say for the arena, very good. Very, very good against randoms. You're going to have a great time with this weapon. It's fun to use. You can combine it with crossbows, parry tools, or whatever you like it. And yeah, you're going to do a lot of damage very quickly. But yeah, against someone like you, you're going to eat them.
Yeah. That is true. Like, the only curved greatsword that I've had problems with was actually the one you're holding right now, just because it was a new weapon in the game, and I just had to figure out the range, but yeah.
I've actually seen a funny thing that someone did once, which was they had Black Knight Shield and this. And what they would do is they would block your first hit and then go straight for the weapon art. And because of how quickly they can do that from block, you actually can't roll out of it quick enough. So he called me. He called me. I need some more juice. Give me a second. Okay, juicing. I'll take that too. So okay, go for it. I forgot to press weapon up. Oh, actually, no, I couldn't get it off.
Woohoo!
I guess you'd have to go for the second R1.
Okay, let's try to do the second one.
Okay. Oh no, you interrupted me easily. No, I guess not. I guess I must have delayed it. Oh, well, that puts that theory to bed.
Yep.
See, that's what we do here. We put forward ideas and then we shut them down. Okay, the rest of the curved greatswords, they're all exactly the same, except for the infusion's a little bit different. I would definitely put Murakumo in good mid tier above the others, just because of the infusion potential and the fact that it's got good reach and stuff, and it's fairly light. But none of them really should be outside of mid tier, except for maybe Herald Curved Greatsword. But that's only if you're also considering putting in other greatswords into high tier.
Yeah. So the the Karthus Curved Greatsword weapon, for me it has emotional, sentimental value. The reason why is because that weapon got me into the tryhard scene. That was actually that still to this day is my actually favorite sword in the game. Not because it's good or anything, just because it got me into the tryhard scene. Like for me, what I would like, where I would like place it, that's just in my own list, is actually above every other sword, just because it got me into the tryhard scene. Even though it's a bad weapon in general, I just like it because of the how it formed me in a player.
Ah, okay, sentimental reasons.
Yeah.
That's one thing to say for it. Okay, so halberds. Hilariously, there's some stuff in top tier here, which they've put the best one as Crucifix of the Mad King, and then Split Leaf just under that. We can make our cases for moving everything down later, because I know I'm going to. I'm pretty sure you will do as well. But let's talk about the playstyle for halberds. Seeing as I took the last two, why don't you talk about halberds?
Personally, every halberd, halberd has insane amount of hyper armor. If I would it's the crucifixion. Oh, what's the first weapon there? The DLC thing.
Crucifix of the Mad King.
Yeah, I would put that down at least under the Split Leaf in general, because the Split Leaf is just better. The weapon art on the Mad King weapon is just, it's risky to use. The Split Leaf though, it has some gimmicks though. It's the best halberd in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. It infuses for really high damage. It does insane damage with strength, dex, dark, anything you want to really go for it. And the fact that it can put these resets so easily and quickly, and you can cancel the weapon art, like everything should be accountable like this, in my opinion.
Yeah, like I also believe R1 into weapon art R2 or R1, one of those, it actually combos.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, that
R1
one, yeah.
weapon art R1 combos and R1 weapon art R2 combos, and they can do like nearly 1,000.
Yeah,
Like depending
that
on armor,
weapon
I
is
think I've done between 1,000 and 1,300. It's crazy.
like in terms of gimmick, that's one of the best gimmick weapons in the game.
Oh, for sure. As far as hyper armor weapons go, it's probably got the most usable running attack because it's got some really good offensive pressure, but you can just easily outspace that and punish it. I've flawless people doing that. The R1s are very quick and you can almost reaction trade with it, which is very nice. The weapon art, like I said, is very good at resetting. R2s, again, I'm not really going to use those, but one-handed, absolutely terrible tracking. It's so easy to backstab everything, and you need a lot of poise two-handed to be able to tank even straight swords and curved swords. Yeah, I think that they're overestimating this. I would move everything down a tier. I mean everything. And I would obviously switch Split Leaf and Crucifix of the Mad King.
Yeah. And then we have the high tier.
Yes, so high tier, or what I would put to mid tier, is Gundar's Halberd, Glaive, Black Knight Halberd, the Lucerne, Red-Hilted Halberd, the regular Halberd, the Wing Knight Halberd, and the most Immolation Tinder, which I think they're overrating all of them. Like, I would actually put Lucerne Halberd, Wing Knight Halberd, and Immolation Tinder a whole tier below everything else in that list. Gundar's Halberd is probably one of the best physical ones there. Black Knight Glaive was amazing at launch, but it got nerfed really hard. And Red-Hilted Halberd is practically a spear.
Black Knight Halberd at launch was also amazing though.
Yeah.
Like it was insane. It actually competed with the meta.
Oh well, yeah, because the R1 weapon art, the whole thing comboed. Like the damage was insane, and then you ended up switching it to R1 weapon art. R1, that was a combo. Then you could roll catch so easily with the R2s because the tracking on this was insane.
Yep, and it had a disjointed hitbox as well. So like before, Halberd was insane. Was the best. Like in terms of how the game is now and how the game was, yes, Karthus was insane, and Darksword was also insane, but in terms of what was good in the game, there was more good weapons in terms of a broad view.
Yeah, it could compete pretty nicely, but it can't anymore. Yeah, unfortunately most halberds have the exact same moveset. Second R1 is incredibly easy to backstab, so you really have to stagger these guys a lot. If you can get them though, with some of them they have some good gimmicky stuff, so for me, I would put the top of them Split Leaf, Crucifix and Mad King, mostly because of the dark buff on that. Gundar's Halberd, unfortunately because it can't be infused. Then Black Knight Halberd, Red-Hilted Halberd, and everything else just a whole tier below because they're all gimmicky and they're not exactly good and you need a lot of poise to get anything out of them.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, some of these later classes, all the weapons are such clones, there's not really much there is to discuss. They've thrown in the curved axe into mid tier. I'd slap that down to low tier. Yeah, I'd put pretty much Immolation Tinder low tier, Wing Knight Halberd low tier, Lucerne maybe mid tier, but Halberd definitely low tier as well. Yeah, Lucerne has the good properties of the Leo ring, so everything counts as thrust, and yeah, so it's not that bad. Immolation Tinder needs way too much poise to be useful, and yeah, it can be used as a casting tool, but it's just inferior to both the straight sword and the pickaxe versions. Okay, so hammers. So have you used hammers very much?
I've used the war pick sometimes, and the only reason why is because of the hyper armor gimmick that you can do with the two-handed, which is dirty.
Yes. Okay, I really like hammers. When they first buffed them, I think I went on a 107 win streak at Pontiff just by R1 mashing. It was insane because they got the two-handed hyper armor, they got that rocket step on the third thing, so it was like auto roll catch with any panic roll. And yeah, it was ridiculous. Like, it was fast enough to beat all the other big weapons, and the only thing that could really compete were other hammers because people didn't know the gimmick. I think I even saw Scorebrand almost get flawless by someone using a hammer when he was using Karthus. He did turn it around and absolutely dunked on the guy, but it was just the fact that his first like 4 hits did almost killed him. It did like 1500 damage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what they've done is at the top of high tier, they put nothing top tier. They put war pick, hazel pick, and mace. They've also put in the reinforced club, which I have no idea. Club moves say it's garbage. For me, war pick I like. Like you can use it self buff to get increased stamina regen. It's got the good it's got the good poise for the fact that when it's 2-handed. Main problem: startup slower than fast weapons. Running attack garbage. R2 garbage. It feels like an axe with hyper armor that you have to use 2-handed.
Yeah, 2-handed is essential. There's one weapon that you can actually use 1-handed in that tier list, and that's hazel pick. But hazel pick is a casting tool, if people don't know. So you need to pair the hazel pick with a shield or something.
Yeah, hazel pick with Black Knight shield, or a crossbow, or even Dragonhead shield. Pretty amazing one-handed. You can switch to 2-handed when you like to get that hyper armor to make those trades, and it does some good damage. But mostly, it's just running away and spamming homing soul mass, which is so hard to punish, and it makes it so good. Definitely, I would put high tier, definitely hazel pick. Low high tier, maybe war pick or mace, but I feel like I'm being too generous.
Yeah, the one thing that is fun with the mace, and now it's more of like against the randoms per se. If you use warmth and mace, and just stand in between the warmth and just overuse the hyper armor thing, you just can't lose against the random at least.
Oh yeah, you got 5 seconds of being completely uninterruptible, and even without that, you still got the hyper armor. You got the little rocket step to auto roll catch panic rolls, and yeah, inside warmth, I've seen the dirty tank build. It was hysterical.
Yeah, but in terms of a high tier or a high skill level match against a good player, there's nothing like the hammers have on anyone. If you know the gimmick on the hammers and know like you just know everything about the game, there's no reason to use the hammers at all.
Yeah,
it's a fun weapon platform.
I can agree. Against arena randoms, maybe you could argue to put them in high tier. Tournament level, they're too slow, they're too short. Yes, they have very good damage because strike, and most people have like 20% strike resistance, even if they have 30% everything else. Yeah, the fact that they have no running attack, meaning they can't really get the last hit, and they can't really combo outside of R1. It's pretty much a one-use gimmick there. And yeah, perseverance, you just count to 5 and then you can punish it. But it's still good for being able to get that walking pressure on, but you can still hit them once and then roll away. Yeah, I like them, but I don't see them exactly competing in the high class. So I would maybe, for against randoms, put them low high tier from what we read out. Definitely move reinforced club all the way down to the bottom of mid tier, maybe even low tier.
Yeah.
Okay, so mid tier they've put the Morningstar, the Club, and the Rose of Ariandel. Morningstar is just a worse mace. Club, it should be low tier, and Rose of Ariandel, I don't mind seeing in there. It's technically a whip, but it's got more reach than any other hammer, and it's also a catalyst for miracles.
Yep.
And then
there's nothing I would add to it at all.
Yeah, there's nothing really to put there. The low tier they've put the blacksmith hammer, and then bad tier they've put the follower's torch because it has no hyper armor. I wouldn't mind leaving them there. Follower's torch is probably the worst there, and blacksmith's hammer's it's not even a usable weapon.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we move into the fun ones, which is what I like to call we overrate hyper armor, which is great hammers, great axes, and ultra great swords. We'll start with great hammers, but they've put stuff in high tier, and at the best they're mid tier, and at the worst they're bad tier. Oh, okay, so let's start with great hammers, which is probably better than ultra great swords, but not as good as great axes because they can be used one-handed. So yeah, do you want to talk about the problems with great hammers?
It's when you use great hammers two-handed. Like, it's really easy to outspace everything. There's one thing, and you're actually using the weapon now, and I've actually made a video about it. I actually lost to a great hammer. I've lost to the great hammer twice, actually. And both of them have been for the R2s right there because of the range. I just misjudged the range on the R2s every fucking time because I'm bad at the game. And Lidos. That's like, for me personally, the one thing I have most struggle with is the Great Club, the one you're using, and Lidos. And now I actually have to add something with the Lidos. There's actually just one player in this game. I'm not going to give any names. There's one player in this game who is just objectively better than any Lidos user. The last tournament I was in, I played against a good Lidos user at all. Like he was really fucking good. He was solid with the hammer, but it's still a great hammer, and he was just bad compared to the guy that I'm talking about. He knows who he is.
Yeah, the problem with great hammers and ultra great swords is they have a very slow, easy to punish R1 moveset, and you can backstab at a third R1, so they really need to be staggering stuff. And yeah, even without a weapon, you can punish every swing almost. It's, yeah, you just hit me between the hyper arm before I can even get the second swing. It's ridiculous. The running attacks are dreadful. They're easy to backstab. The R2s are pretty bad. I can't believe you got hit by that. But the thing that I would move all great hammers probably down to low mid tier or top bad. Low mid tier or top up to bad low tier, except for Lido's Great Club, because they're pretty amazing, Spiked Mace, and maybe Wooden Hammer. Lido's, the one thing that I think it's really good at is if you keep close to someone, the weapon art, if you don't expect it to be coming and they've kept you just slightly to their left, it is really hard to roll. Like, you need to be on that, because otherwise people are going to be catching you, and you have to be ready to basically go for it, because it is quick.
Oof. The one thing, yeah...
And that's a true combo if I catch you with the second one. And that's 1,000 damage that I just did there from one mistake. But that's why Lido's is good.
And one thing also with the rocks, like, when someone is buffing the Lidos and they're going to do charge R2, just stay away and let the rocks just flash. Don't do anything, don't try to outspace the rocks, because you will just get fucked. You need to buff the rocks.
Yeah, there's also another slightly gimmick that I've seen with this. If someone goes for fully charged R2 on Lidos, it's pretty easy to backstab or punish. But if they just tap R2 and do the quick one, they can then almost immediately R1. So if you're not good with your spacing and your timing, you can then eat an R1 or weapon art. So you have to be careful. But yeah, the fact that you can even outspace it with like that is ridiculous.
No. There's nothing I can do. You didn't actually charge it, but yeah.
Yeah, I
like
didn't.
Lidos it's a solid weapon in one player, like the one player that I faced.
Yeah, and even then, he's really easy to shut down. Like, if you have a shield, there's nothing he can do.
That is true.
You need to sometimes rely on other things. Like, the one-hand moveset is practically not usable, so you can't really even combine it with stuff like shields or crossbows or anything else like that. But yeah, effectively, Lido's Great Club and Spiked Mace, which has an amazing R1, L2, R1 combo, which you can also sometimes trick people by doing R1, L2, R2, and then it combos into R1 again really quickly, so you can catch people trying to punish you. But outside of those gimmicks, they're not very usable. Like, those weapons I would arguably put into mid tier. Nothing really deserves to be in high tier. Pretty much everything else, they're just straight up copies of each other that I'd put in low tier or bad tier. So everything they put in mid tier, I'd move down one. I'd put Spiked Mace down into mid tier as well from high tier. But everything else seems fine on the list. Anything that you specifically want to mention on Great Hammers?
If in just the positions of where the Great Hammers are, for me personally, Lidos is number 1, and the Great Club is number 2.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
Just meh.
Yeah, I'd put Spiked Mace third, not like a whole tier above them.
At least. Yeah. That is just everything. But yeah.
So moving on to greataxes then. Why don't you talk about greataxes?
Yorms, like Yorms in general, like the first one, and it is the high tier. There's only one up in high tier, that is Yorms. Yorms at itself, it's bad, but like when you see here, Revan is using Yorms in left hand and straight sword in main hand. That is a really good combo, like, because of the hyper armor, the reach, and the Yorms has the most shockwave, if I believe, in the game. Let me see, yeah, the shockwaves on the Yorm is just insane, like, you can outspace anything there, and I can't do anything at all. If you hit with the Yorms, You can, like, let's say you try to whiff with a Yorm and then do the straight sword armor spam. They're just like Yorms and straight sword just goes hand in hand. There's one weapon also, we will come to that further in the list, that is also go hand to hand with the straight sword. But
Yeah.
at itself, every great hammer at itself two-handed or whatever, it's bad.
Great axe.
Great axe, sorry.
Something to mention about Yorms, two-handed, it will not combo the R1s unless it's a roll catch. So if you catch someone rolling, it will two-hit combo, but standing it won't, so it's only really useful two-handed against parry spammers. One-handed, like you said, yep, absolutely amazing with straight swords. Because of that, I would not put high tier. I'd put top mid tier, maybe low high tier, but not exactly top of top tier. Really good reach, but unfortunately shields do shut it down because it's a completely physical weapon you can't infuse, which is then why Great Machete is worth talking about.
Yes, and that is actually the other weapon that is really good, comparing it with a straight sword. Personally, Great Machete is just better in terms of, like, overall the more matchups you're going to go up against, it's better to use Great Machete. It's a lighter weapon than Yorm, so it means that you can have better armor, more physical defense, and still you have the straight sword, which is just amazing.
Yeah, and the reason why he's saying it's better matchup is because you can dark infuse it, so it means shields don't just shut you down. So you can chip through shields with it, you can then combine it with a dark straight sword, and it's why it's really useful. It's the only reason I would use that over Yorms, is if I knew I was going to use someone who was going to use a shield. And you do, it is quite nice to have the hyper armor and a straight sword. Then even against someone with a curved sword, they have to think twice because they have to be aware that you've got two options. You've got your straight swords and then mistakes. It's not as easy to then roll catch, but it's you've got that reactive trading. You've got that good straight sword. So yeah, I would put Great Machete on the same tier as Yorms. They're two sides of the same coin. Yorms for damage and reach and the shockwave, but Great Machete for the chipping. So yeah, they're all pretty decent. I think every other Great Axe, because I'm not even going to name them individually for mid tier, is I would move the entire mid tier that they put there into low tier, and that's where every other Great Axe in the game would be. Low tier with Great Machete and Yorms arguably going into mid tier or low high tier because they can be combined for straight swords so well.
Nope.
Yeah, because two-handed, they have every weakness that a Great Mace does, which is one-handed isn't exactly great, two-handed isn't exactly great, no offensive pressure, no rolling attack, no running attack. It's no really good gimmicks. Like I've used them all. Like pickaxe is funny because it actually has great hammer hyper armor, but besides that, there's just nothing really going for them. But Yorms and Great Machete probably put them above Great Hammers and Ultra Great Swords, just those two weapons.
Yeah.
Okay, Ultra Great Swords. So this is a terrible class in my opinion that everyone thinks is amazing and everyone hates it when you say is bad.
Okay, I'm just going to touch on something, and I'm probably going to get hate for this, and I don't actually care. For me personally, Greatsword, Ultra Greatsword class in this game is, for me, bad tier. Every fucking Greatsword in the game. The reason why, I could, like, let's say if I play my A game, I'm really fucking tryharding, I could win against anyone who's using a Greatsword with my fist. There's only probably one attack in the game that is good, and that's a rolling attack, because there's just... I don't want to do anything against that, but R1s, I can go in between and just hit you. If I can do running attacks and hit you in between attacks, I can just do everything that I want to you.
Yeah, it's really hard because it's like, how am I exactly meant to pressure you here? Because my running attacks, dreadful. I can't believe that hit you. Even that, I thought that would have catch your panic roll. It's really hard because there's no way I can pressure you because a defensive player, there's nothing I can do there. And even if I switch to be the defensive player here, so if I'm not going to you, it's so hard to reaction trade. Like, it's hard, man.
Like,
the recovery, I couldn't roll. I was trying. You can't parry these two-handed.
You can do the running attack parry on the...
Rolling.
Yeah. No, I won't put the parry, but no.
I blocked your fist. Yeah,
I thought
that's
it was
the
roll
only
catching,
good thing you've got there is punishing people and then going for the rolling attack. Besides that, like, it's ridiculous here.
So what would happen if I actually switch to any weapon that is faster than yours?
You would destroy me. I bet, even with your health like that, if you have that curve sword, I'd be surprised if I even got one hit in on you. And I'm not exactly someone who's bad. We're getting really distracted here, but there's no way I can press you. Oh god. I'm kind of just hoping that. Oh, even there, I thought. Nah, I'm gonna die. I thought I'd be able to trade, but yeah, it's just it's just too slow. You were able to. I saw the running attack coming, and I just couldn't do it in time. To beat someone with an ultra great sword who's good, you have to be at least 10 times better than them. And if you're doing that, then you're probably holding yourself back with this weapon. Probably going to do well in invasions against PvE players, because in invasions, a lot of bad weapons are good because people don't understand PvP. Maybe 2v2s it's good because your opponent won't see you coming up behind them to hit them with a weapon that's going to kill them in 3 hits. But yeah,
the one argument that I've heard that ultra great sword users use is that you never attack me, you just run around, wait for me to attack, and then you will attack me. That is the only argument that ultra great sword users are using, and the reason why, and now I'm going to tell you the answer to why I do that, and that is because I don't want to stand here. Like here, this is a bad place for me to stand in case if I'm not doing anything. Like there's nothing I would do, but around this range, this is a good range for me. Like anything that I can do, I can just outspace. No reason for me to go inside his face. I can outspace anything in the game. There's just nothing the class has on. Aww.
Yeah,
I wanted. Yeah, the rolling attack is the. Ow. What? But yeah, like ultra great swords in general, it's just. It's just bad.
Yeah, I can agree with that.
Class in the game.
I would probably put, like you said, all of them into low tier, besides maybe Lothric Knight Greatsword and Astora Greatsword, which I'd put in mid tier because they are very good in fusion and they can 3-shot people. It is quite usable because sometimes the weapon art is okay, but yeah, nothing is exactly spectacular on any of them. You're just asking for a bad time by using them, in my opinion.
Yeah, and just to make everybody know, this is a bad weapon in terms of tournament play. If you want to use it against a random, like they will not have the same reaction time that I do or Revan do or anyone else because they play the game for fun.
Yeah, I reckon you'll be winning a good 50% of your matches in the arena. If you're good, probably 60 because most people are just R1 matches, so you will be able to punish that. But yeah, I'd put everything in low tier except for Astora's and Lothric Knight Greatsword.
Yep.
Okay, so we've got rid of the meme weapons. Let's probably move on to something that some people would call S tier, but I only think has one good weapon in the entire class, maybe 2 at a push, which is thrusting swords.
Yeah.
So, give me your thoughts on thrusting swords, aka rapiers.
Personally, okay, I'm going to do this from a PS4 tournament player view and not a PC tournament player because I'm not a PC master race guy because I'm poor. They are better than a lot of classes in the game. Only reason why, it's fast, it is really good paired with a shield. S-Stock is probably the best one still, in my opinion, because of the range really. S-Stock is just the most superior thrusting sword in the game, and it's fast too. And I've heard on PC the tracking is a lot better than on PS4, but I haven't played on PC, and the PC guys who like supposedly are the most tryhard guys on PC and they've said that they're the best PC player, and a lot of PC players said that that dude is the best PC player. He went to PS4 to fight me, and he got utterly destroyed, and he just got ass raped, in my opinion. Like, he was good, probably is good in PC, and probably is just using straight thrusting swords. But after what I know, the tryhard community on PS4 is so much more tryhard than tryhard community on PC.
No, I love that. Makes sense. Yeah, thrusting swords. They don't have the reach of straight swords or curved swords. They are fast, not as fast as curved swords, but they are faster than straight swords. Shield poke, they can actually do quicker than the R1s of them. You don't really want to use them for block. You want to use them to catch roll catches. So you go for the 2. And if someone panic rolls, you can go for the little shield poke. You want to play it defensively. You're not going to be the aggressor, because the running attack is very easy to backstab, or just to run past it and then hit them twice. Like there, I was straight on you and it didn't track you. Like, I didn't try to miss that. Like, you were able to avoid it without rolling.
Yeah, and what I've heard on PC, the tracking is better. That's the only thing, that's the only knowledge I have on the weapon. The one thing I will say about the class in general, though, is that it's probably one of the best classes in the game, weapon classes, in terms of, like, if you want to use something, I would recommend to either use curved swords, straight swords, dagger, or thrusting weapons. That's
or katanas.
Or yeah, and katanas. That's like the weapons you should use if you want to like get good with the weapon class and you don't want to like be try hard.
Yeah, honestly, I think the best thing about the rapiers is that they're fast and you can combine it with a shield, crossbow, dragon head, or anything in your offhand, and that's what makes it good, because the reach on it isn't exactly the best, but someone avoiding this is going to probably then get caught. Oh no, I wasn't locked on.
Okay.
But yeah, someone avoiding a poke. Someone avoiding a poke.
I'm sorry.
You're terrible.
I was watching on my phone. I was on the phone.
Anyway,
Okay,
my point that I was going to make is someone watching a poke can then sometimes be easy to catch with a crossbow.
Let's try again. I will be good this time, Dad.
It'd be better if I had aim, but but yeah, it's just good to then combine it with other things. Like Dragon Head is pretty nice with it. Crossbows are pretty nice. PC players, because they have no aim, like to use the Javelin, because you can just be like reload, and it's much easier to hit people with than not using it. But yeah, you burn through your ammo like crazy, and someone who's playing reactively here, he's not exactly going to be getting hit a lot. See, look, we were both in neutral from R1, and he was quicker than me to then start up and hit me. So you like S-Stock can't trade. Like, he just proved it. We both R1'd at the same time, and we both hit R1 immediately, and he was able to hit me first and damage me. So I'm gonna lose those trades every time, even if I get that one Leering poke in. Yeah. Mostly, I'm going to be relying on the shield and hoping that I can outspace R1s or running attacks and go in for some pokes, and if he panic rolls, you can then catch people with the weapon up like that, which is pretty nice. But yeah, the tracking's terrible. Like, I went to his side there. And yeah, because of the momentum, it's... Ooh, that was delayed. Like that. That's how you do that.
Ooh.
Like those 2 hits, if they panic roll, you go for the weapon up. See, because of the little exchanges like that, people think that this is much better than it is, but the tracking's just not as good. A lot of the times, Gemetic didn't even need to roll to avoid my attacks, whereas I would have to roll. So, but the fact that he doesn't have to roll and I do, that gives him an advantage to be able to punish me easier. Like, if you play reactive passive with the S-Stock, you're going to do good with it, but you'd be better with a straight sword or curved sword because you'd be able to use the aggression more efficiently. It's like there. If what I just did there is I went to run for his back and he was able to hit my shield by almost with me behind him. With a rapier, I wouldn't. Like, he would be able to run around my pokes and get to my back, and in some cases just flat out outspace me. So yeah, it's the main difference. Like, Gemetic there would be able to just run straight at me, and he can avoid hits quite easily without even needing to roll, and then just outspace me. So look here, okay, now we're caught in a trade thing. So here, if I had Leering, maybe I could win and force rolls, but it's questionable. It's too situational. I would say rapiers aren't as good as straight swords or even curved swords. A good player probably can compete with the best players with it. Like, if you play it right, you need to be defensive, you need to be staggering your hits. It's going to be harder to win. Basically, if you're just as good, you might be able to compete, but at the same time, you'll always have an easier time to win with a straight sword or curved sword, because the skill ceiling is much lower, because the tracking is just not as good. I wasn't even paying attention. But, okay, so let's talk about where they've actually placed things in the tier. They've put Jep. Oh god, see, I was right in your face, and the tracking is so bad. The tracking is so bad. But yeah. Okay, so they've put S-Stock, and they've put Crystal Sage Rapier and Ricard's Rapier in high tier. I completely disagree with Crystal Sage Rapier and Ricard's Rapier being in high tier. I'd throw them down to mid tier, and S-Stock mid-high tier, yes, and I would probably put Crow Quills up to low-high tier because of one gimmick, which is Crow Quills are quite long. They have the good trade on it, but the one advantage that it has over the regular Rapier is they have hyper armor on the running L1s. Now, you might be thinking, meh, what does that matter? And that's strictly for the Dragon Head shield matchup. The fact that I can actually run through the Dragon Head flame with hyper armor and hit them, for me, that's big. That is really big. It can combo R1 into L1, which is good damage, and it can also combo rolling R1 into L1. And as you see there, Gemetic rolled and I roll caught him, but because he has over 35 poise, I didn't stun lock him, so he could have rolled out a lot more hits, whereas straight sword and curve sword, it probably would have been easier to catch him. Ooh. And yeah, again, you're going to be relying on your shields. You've got to really know when to block, when to roll. It's the amount of work that you have to put in. It's so much more. It's just harder to be good. It's the main way I'd put that. So yeah, Crow Quills low high tier, S-Stock mid tier. Every other Rapier I would put mid tier. How about you, Gemetic?
The Crow Quills is just. It's a really good weapon. But for me, S-Stock is probably the best thrusting weapon in the game.
Yep.
Paired with something.
Yeah, it can't, not on its own. You can't just use an S-Stock on its own. Like straight sword, you could get away with that. You could maybe get away with that well, you will with a curve sword, because curve swords are amazing. They're the best weapon class. But yeah, an S-Stock without a shield, like, you're gonna have a bad time. You're gonna have a really bad time. Yeah, I even use a parry tool here. See, look, the distance is just isn't good. I'm probably doing better with this than Gemetic would probably give the weapon credit for. Like, I don't hate the S-Stock, I don't hate Rapiers, but what I'm saying is they're just objectively not as good as some of the other weapons. Ooh. Like, you can roll catch with them like that there. You can outplay them, but it's harder. Like, the amount of effort and try hard I just had to do there to keep up with Gemetic, I would have had a much easier time with straight sword. I probably would have been able to hit him 2 times at least, rather than 1 time a piece. But I guess some people like to play overly defensive, and that's why they're drawn to the S-Stock. And for those people, I say go for it, man. Like, if that's what you like, then do it. But yeah, I think that covers thrusting swords. Like, I can agree with the S-Stock placement. I'd move Crow Quills up, and yeah, everything else I'd throw down.
Yeah, like in general, S-Stock, like thrusting weapons is just a really solid class paired with something. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet I just surprised you there, because I remember that one video you did with the S-Stock and you were saying how horrible it was.
I hate fucking S-Stock personally. Like, the reason why is not because the weapon class is bad in general, it's just that the tracking is just worse than straight sword. It's the reason why straight sword has a sweeping moveset and the S-Stock has a thrusting moveset.
Yep.
Which means that the hit, you have to hit it with more precision, and it's just.
Yeah, and the running attacks it's laughable by comparison. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't track, and it's really easy. Like, if you run at me, so run straight towards me. Yeah, that's what I do to them. Which with straight sword you can hit. So what I like to do is if I see someone running at me, I run at them and then I go for the backstab. One thing I've noticed that an S-Stock can do, which a curved sword or a straight sword can't, is if say you run at someone with a shield who blocks your running attack, I can actually R1 after they block my running attack, or after I land my running attack before they can hit. So say you go for running attack and then go immediately for an R1 afterwards. So hit me with running attack. Ooh, actually, I thought I'd be able to interrupt that. But the way I've always found it the other way is when I fought other S-Stock people, I've hit them with a running attack, gone for an R1, and they've been able to get me quicker. I don't know if... Actually, maybe they shield poked. I don't know, because it might be quicker. No. But was able to trade that time. I don't know if that could be latency dependent, but I've noticed that if you block my running attack, I can then go for a running attack afterwards. But get into dangerous low health. So I think that will cover rapiers now. I'm not going to argue that I'm the best rapier user, because it's a class that I think is overrated in general. It's good. It's probably top 3 behind straight swords and curved swords, of course.
On PS4,
Even on PC. I've played on PC. I'd argue the exact same. I just think on PC they're not as good aggressively as PlayStation 4 players are, which is why the S-Stock creeps above. Because I don't know how to apply the same pressure with straight sword and curved sword that most of the PS4 players use. And I think Tripod proved that as a fact when he went onto the PC tournament and he didn't lose a single round and he sweeped all of their best players.
True. And that's why I said that the tryhard on PS4 is just more tryhardy than PC.
Yeah, I completely agree. Okay, so we're getting towards the end of this. We'll probably skip shields and spells because shields are pretty much solid, but except for I'd put Dragonhead to S-Class. I'd probably put Ethereal Oak from S-Class or top tier down to high tier, and their spells are absolutely garbage. I would move almost everything below the midway point, and all the buffs I would put straight to low tier, but we don't really need to cover those. So let's move on with paired weapons, and for me there is a glaring thing wrong here. So I'm going to say Gotthards should be top tier.
Yeah, and the reason why it should be top tier is because the Gotthards is actually a longer range than Lothric's Greatsword. The one downside to it though is that it has a bit less AR, but usually the 20 or 30 less AR you have on the weapon doesn't mean anything compared to the range that you have. You can actually outspace a R1 against the Lothric with the Gotthards. The range is that superior, it's insane.
Yeah, it's essentially just a longer version. Yeah, it's got slightly less damage, but who cares? Like, especially where sometimes, because if you know how to switch between, because you're always going to pair with a shield or a crossbow, but sometimes the actual two-handed moveset can be useful because the timings for the running attacks do throw people off, and the actual reach on the L1s is longer than the R1s. So yeah, it's slower, but if you can catch someone with two of those, the damage you're doing is incredible. Although normally, 9 times out of 10, I would just use it as a standard R1 mashing monster that is straight swords.
Yeah, like it's just a really solid straight sword paired with a shield or dragonhead shield or a crossbow.
Yeah, for sure. For other paired weapons, yeah, top tier, 100%. For high tier, what they've put in here is the Wind Knight twin axes, the Sellsword twin blades, the Valorheart, Onikiri Ubadachi, and Croquills. I can agree with all of those except for Sellswords, which I would put down into mid tier because they're garbage in my opinion.
Yeah. And like the Valorheart is really good if you know how to do the gimmick.
Yeah, exactly. Like there's one Valorheart player that he will take anyone and challenge them who says they're bad, and he will prove that the fact that you can even trade with great hammers with one hit and then roll their second hit and go for backstabs. So you're actually winning those trades because of the block frames, and you can it's probably the only pseudo hyper armor weapon that you can reactively trade with because it's straight sword speed, and the pressure that you can put on with the jumping attacks is incredible. Wind Knight twin axes, short, slow, but incredible damage. Onikiri and Ubadachi, it's got a hyper armor gimmicks, but it's still a katana. But yeah, Sellsword, one-handed moveset of a one-handed curved sword, which is terrible. The running attack, one-handed, pretty good. The two-handed moveset, yeah, the range is big on that first L1, but it's so slow and easy to do. And yes, I know it has the combo, which people thought were OP in invasions, but that's just because people were bad and they were eating that first L1. Like, I've never been hit by a serious player in the arena with that L1 because it's so obvious to see coming. And oh my god, the recovery is huge. I couldn't roll there. Yeah, and you can't block, so you pivot. The
sellswords are really good, like a new tier weapon with Black Darkman Blade, because people usually use Darkman Blade, they're bad, but yeah, I'm not going to touch anything about that, but it can buff and it does really like a high amount of damage against someone if you hit them, but that's a big if you hit them.
Yeah, it's really hard. The one-handed running attack is actually really fast and really useful. And one thing we didn't talk about curved sword is curved swords that have the backflip actually have insane hyper armor. So if you can catch someone with a running attack and then you do that, you can hit and get out of the way, and yeah, they won't interrupt you. Even there, I got hit, and his weapon, funny enough, longer, so I took damage and he didn't. Reach 101. But yeah, that's what really changes things up. For mid-tier, they've put in Great Doors, Drang Twin Spears, Baron Great Sword, Drang Hammers, they've put in the Dancer's Twin Blades, Warden Twin Blades, the Brigand Twin Axes, and honestly, I would move probably the Drang Hammers down to low tier, the Warden Twin Blades down to low tier because the reach is bad, Brigands down to low tier, Dancers down to low tier. Do I have Farron? Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I do.
Do you have like a small knife that I can borrow? No, I can actually just use my broken. Okay, for me, I'm just going to touch on something right now. I have never tried to backstab this with the broken straight sword, but for me, Farron Greatsword is a bad tier just because of one thing, actually.
Okay, but I know what's coming, so let me put on tiers now, just in case.
Yeah. I'm using a broken straight sword, so the timing is harder for me.
All right, let's do this.
Almost.
Okay, I'm gonna try and roll. No, I did try to roll.
Yeah, and let's say hypothetically you're using a dagger, like the regular dagger, chaos infused, 1,200 to 1,500 damage right there, and it's easier to do the backstab with a dagger than it is with straight sword because it's a faster class in general. So the window is bigger against that shit.
There is one argument that I can make for the Farron Greatsword to not put it down into low tier and keep it in mid tier, and that's because most people who do it from this spacing are going to get backstabbed, but if you do it from this spacing, you can't backstab it. Like,
you can parry though.
Oh, you can parry.
Try. Yeah.
Oh shit. So yeah, from this spacing backstab, from that spacing parry.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Maybe your arguments are or not. But no, you do have some good points. It is pretty easy to counter. Like you have to put in a lot of effort to use this correctly.
And let's say
yeah.
use like a shield and a knife. Boom! You can just outspace it, and if you outspace it, parry. If it hits you with the sword, you just chip him with the thing. Like there's nothing you can do. The weapon is bad. Yes, people thought it was good when the game first came out, but
oh yeah, the reason people thought it was good because they tried to roll away from that, and that would catch them. But the trick is to either roll into it or just outspace it and backstab them.
Yep. And before someone is going to say something in the comments, yes, that weapon has always been that way. You can always backstab it from the start of the game. I did that when the game just came out, FYI.
Okay, so yeah, I think that pretty much covers paired weapons because most of them we agree with. So hopefully we'll remember to edit and actually show the tier list, so the things that we don't agree with we can keep in. Okay, so let's move on to Reapers or Scythes because they're Scythes. I don't know why people call them Reapers. Okay, so you said a while back, and I for some reason I got the credit for this. You said that you thought Scythe was a meta contender that could compete with the best weapons in the game. And of course people immediately read out because they were taking this as you were saying it's the best weapon in the game.
Yep.
Your reasoning for this
By the way, I'm
is... Yep, Gemetic. It was Gemetic that said it. It's... This recently won the PS4 World Tournament and beat the guy that's always said it was terrible. Beat the guy who destroyed all the PC players and won the PC World Tournament. So the best guy on PC lost to this on PS4 using the exact same setup. And even that someone who was probably one of the best players in this game, or who is a PS4 main using Pontiff Knight Curve Sword, did lose to a guy using Fast Roll. But I suspect that he wasn't try-harding as much as he should do. After the second round, his gameplay did just drop. And I think it's just mostly because he didn't care, but I can't comment on that. But the reason Reapers are good is the fact that the staggered R1 is pretty nice. The bad things about it is the second R1 has the terrible tracking of axes. They can combo from R1 into R2 for some good damage, which you can then R1, R2, and if people panic roll, you can catch with an R1, or if they try to R1 you. One-handed, you can combo R1 into a jumping attack into R1, which is pretty nice. But again, one-handed tracking is still pretty terrible. But the one-handed running attack has some good reach and range, but it's slow. The two-handed running attack, terrible tracking. R2 is pretty bad. The hyper armor on the weapon art isn't bad, but it's not exactly the best. But the thing is, the reason the Corvian is so good, and the reason we're talking about this, not the class in general at the moment, is the fact that it actually hits longer than it visibly sees. As you saw there, my blade didn't really hit him, but I'm still damaging him, and it's actually damaging him before my swings should be hitting him. And it's just beyond it. It's really, really cool. So yeah, Reapers in general, meh. for the whole class, mid-tier across the board, except for Corvian Great Scythe, which I would put into low-high tier. And that's mostly, and as a defensive player, if you can keep off someone and just go for the staggered R1s, you are really hard to punish. And if you land the R1, you can then go your second one, or even your R2, and if they don't roll, you can then catch them with another R1, which is pretty nice, and you can just reset that. But as long as you play this defensively, you are really, really hard to punish.
Yep.
Now, I've spent all that time waffling on about something Gemetic predicted, so no one was more no one was more proven right than when this won the World Tournament, because Gemetic said this was amazing, and I was so taken back by this. I put up a video that I said, this is apparently the best weapon in the game, you put this on a regen build, you can't be beaten. This man said that, go beat him up. And that's what I said, and the vast majority of the community was like, oh, that's cool, I'll take that challenge. Unfortunately, a very small handful of PC players read out like, how dare you say something's better without consulting the PC Council. Whee! And yeah, eventually that turned into a flame war. Loads of shit talking back and forth from everyone involved. None of them would actually fight me or Gemetic. We all said that, yeah, I'll fight any build you want. We'll both just use Scythe. We won't, and they even requested that we're not allowed to use healing spells, we're not allowed to use offhand weapons, we're not allowed to use backup weapons, but they were allowed to use shields, crossbows, healing, anything they wanted. And 10 seconds before it was meant to go down, I was meant to fight another streamer. Gemetic was meant to fight an invader. They both dropped out. Literally, they were just like, nope, not worth it. And then they fought each other, and neither of them knew how to use the weapon. And that was their argument to say, actually, it's terrible because we're bad with it.
And they also made a video about it. And the one thing that they just do, they just R1 spam. That's what they did. Like, that's because the weapon is bad. You can't R1 spam it. The weapon is bad, and the weapon is not meant to play that way. You are meant to use staggered R1s. And for me, still, the Scythe is a fucking amazing weapon. The Corvian Scythe, at least. And I felt like when the dude at the World Tournament won against the best player, like one of the best players in the world with the Scythe, I gloated a bit. I was like jumping around, being actually happy and all. Like I was happy. Like I felt like I made a point a couple months ago, and it finally happened.
No, I agree. And yeah, the reason he won quite easily was a lot of people that he was using. One guy who was really good at using greatsword, he was just literally outspacing him. And this was semi-finals, I think, and he outspaced everything and just absolutely taught him the difference between scythes and greatswords. And the range is good. And one of the best things about the Corvian is it can actually outreach the flame of Dragonhead, so it can actually punish Dragonhead on those R1s. One thing you have to be careful of is, like you saw there, is I staggered an R1 and caught Gemetic, but I didn't expect to hit him. But like I did there, if you catch him with a staggered R1, you can actually wait and do a second R1 again, whereas, again, I could have also gone for R1, R2. So it's one of those things, you have to pick your moments.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that they recognise Corvian as a high-tier weapon. It is something that I reckon deserves to be in the meta. I'm not going to say it's the best of the meta, but used with the right playstyle. Every argument that people make for S-Stock being good can be directly applied to the Corvian Great Scythe, in my opinion.
Yep. It's just overall better. Like, I'm so happy.
Okay, so one thing that people are going to complain about here is the fact that I've said Freed should just be shoved down into mid-tier, not talked about. Why don't you give me your opinions on Freed Scythe, because I have been rambling on for so long.
Like, Freed Scythe, like, first, when I was, like, testing the scythes, yes, I have a lot of knowledge about the scythe, because I tested the shit out of all the scythes when the patch just first came out. The weapon art, for one, like, first I thought that, oh, this weapon art, it's the best fucking weapon art in the game, there's nothing you can do to interrupt it. After what I've tested, then you can parry the second part of the weapon art, but now I'm actually not sure. Oh, let me try again. I'm actually not sure anymore, because
I've seen people parry the jump
to the sights. The first one, I've like, I don't know what they did to that sight, but there's one thing that you can do though. Do the weapon art. If you outspace it the regular way, you can just. Oh, the spacing was fucking bad.
Your spacing was bad. I'm sorry, Mum.
There.
Yeah, you interrupted the boys.
Yeah, you can do that every time if your spacing is good, and you can also do it if you see them do when you see them just activating the weapon art, when they take them, yeah, that one. You can also interact that one if you have insane reaction, insane reaction. So I was actually going back and forth between the Frayed Scythe and the Corvian, but I ended up with the Corvian just because of the range is just superior. That's the reason why. Every other scythe is just worse, in my opinion, compared to the Corvian. But if I was going to rank them, it should be Corvian at first, Frayed second, and Pontificate, Great Scythe, and Great Scythe.
I'm about to upset a lot of people. I'd put Freed Scythe at the bottom. And the reason the R1's slower than all the other scythes, it has this really big wind up that you can very easily interrupt because you raise the scythe before you swing, and because of that you can interrupt it. And yesterday I was playing around and I was doing the same. Like, people also doing that, the recovery is so long that you can punish that with Chaos Bed Vestiges on reaction. You can do what you did, hit me with R1, then you would have been able to roll out before I did a second one. And the fact that this is so slow, it is so easy to interrupt and punish. Oh, I'm parrying. And the reaction parry.
Reaction parry.
And it's because that's so obvious that it's coming. React. And Gemetic's not someone who's good at parrying, and he was just like, nope. But yeah, okay,
I'm bad at parrying.
Yeah, so yeah, I think that pretty much covers scythes. The last thing on the list here is whips and fists. Whips, I don't think anything needs to move. What about you?
In terms of if they stay here alone, then I'm completely agreeing with the list. The one thing the Witch's Locks, the Witch's Locks though is good paired with a straight sword, but then again, straight sword is carrying a lot of weapons.
Yeah.
Too high tier.
Oh, I just realised there was a weapon we missed from paired weapons that we'll throw it out now. They've put in low tier Ring Knight paired greatswords. Yeah, they are. just get that out there.
Okay,
put
by
it in
the
the
way,
video.
Ring Knight paired greatsword. I'm just going to touch a bit. Like, people still think Ring Knight paired greatsword is insanely good. And like I'm in a lot of like Facebook groups of Dark Souls and whatnot, and they still think it's fucking good. Just do the L1, the best, quote unquote, the best attack in the game.
Ow.
There is like, the weapon is just bad, and they made the weapon worse by making the tracking worse on the weapon art. Like, if you do the weapon art in general and do the jumping thing, I can just almost run around you. There you can't hit me and I can just backstab you. There's nothing you can do. Before the tracking was good. Like, you could actually just hit him, but now you can just backstab the dude. It's insanely bad.
Yeah, it is. I've seen a lot of people argue because the start hyper armor is so late on this. You can actually interrupt it with an R1 as well, and the recovery is long enough to be able to hit it before it can even start the swing on the second thing. There is one thing that I will defend on it, that it has an amazing running L1. I think all ultras should have running attacks like this, because the recovery is so short that I can safely go for a running attack and then roll like a faster weapon can. Like, I know the animation's a bit ridiculous, but that's the best part. See, I was able to roll. You did roll catch me, but then I was also able to hit you at the same time. I'm not exactly going to win that way, but it's going to be okay. I know a lot of people will argue, oh, you're not meant to be the aggressor, you're meant to just back up, and then when you can, reaction trade an R1, then you go for the L1, blah, 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 then go for the R2s. But, yeah, I caught him there, but that's because we were talking, and in a real duel, he would smash me. It's not going to be something. Okay, so fist weapons. I would agree with most of this, except for I would put Castus above Claws, because Castus is amazing. Hell, it might even creep into high tier, in my opinion.
Yeah, like, okay, for me, where it stands in terms of like attacking, I think it's safe to say that it's high tier, like either really high mid tier to low high tier. But if you pair the Cestus with something, and that I mean with the Pontificate Curd Sword, because I'm using a Cestus in my offhand blessed Cestus. That's just because of having the regen. I never use my Cestus or Cestus, whatever you want to say, except when I do the hyper armor. That's the only time I use it.
Which is very good. Like, when you pair that with stuff, you can get like 5 seconds of hyper armor, and you can just walk straight at someone. I know the best curve sailed player on PS4 does that. He just turns that on, walks straight at the opponent, and if they roll, he roll catches, and if they don't, he R1s and probably roll catches them anyway.
I have to correct you with something though.
Yes.
3 seconds of the hyper armor on Cestus, by the way.
Ah, okay. I guess 3 seconds for the time when you switch to the secondary weapon rather than from just cast. Because on this one, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that's 5. But I guess if you do that and then do that, it's 3 seconds. So yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that makes sense. Okay, so then we move on to the very final thing, which is something that I think can make any slow weapon good. Crossbows.
Yeah. Like, I've tested crossbows. Me personally, I like the light crossbow. That's the best crossbow, for me at least.
Yes.
But crossbows in general, like almost every crossbow is almost the same speed. I felt that the light crossbow had the best speed compared to weight ratio. Yes, the arbalist is still the same speed, but it weights more, and you get 20 more damage with the exploding bolt. And you don't like. For me personally, in terms of min-maxing, light crossbow is the best crossbow for tryhard standpoint of view. But there's a lot of crossbows that are actually really good because they're paired with something good. Even Avalyn, which is.
Well, yeah, Avalyn gets the 3 shots, so you're more likely to hit. I think Arbalist does the most damage, but the regular light crossbow is 4 units lighter, so why wouldn't you go for that when it's only 20 damage difference? The only thing I will note you need to make note of is Sniper's crossbow is actually slower than every crossbow in the game. It has a longer startup to even take a shot. Oh, and a heavy crossbow exists. A lot of people don't know that a heavy crossbow exists because it's got the same weight as Dragonhead Shield, but it does slightly more damage to light crossbow, slightly less damage than Arbalist, but only one enemy in the entire game drops it, so a lot of people don't know it's a thing. But it is a thing.
Yeah.
All bows are low tier. I'm just going to throw it out.
Yeah, all bows are low tier.
Yeah, and great bows are even below that. Like, using great bow, you're just agreeing that you're going to die.
If you're just using great bow and you win, you can safely just turn off the game, be happy for the day.
Yeah, you won the game forever. No, yeah. That's how you win Dark Souls. You win with just using purely a great bow.
Yeah, if you win against me with a great bow, I'm actually like if you just use the great bow. By the way, if you win against me in this game by using great bow, I'm going to actually break my CD and post that shit on YouTube.
A video of it. Does it count if it's in a Fight Club hyper mode and you didn't see the arrow coming?
They have to just use from the start of the fight to the finish.
Oh, so an actual duel, not a random snipe.
No, it has to be a random, like a duel.
Okay, so I was going to say, if I'm ever in a Fight Club and you're on one shot and I hit you with a great bow, does that mean you...
No.
Okay.
You need to be from full health.
Okay, I think that covers all of it. Shields, like I said, I think they're all in pretty much good placing, except I'd move Dragonhead up to top tier. I'd move Ethereal Oak down because it's not a blocking shield, it's just a regen shield. Everything else I like. Spells, every buff is low tier. Most of the stuff they put in S tier and high tier are mid tier at best, and some of the stuff they put in mid tier need to go up. The spells are so much of a mess I don't even want to touch it. I just completely disagree with everything but Black Flame, Fire Surge, Chaos Bed Vestiges, and Homing Soul Mass. Everything else is highly disputable. So it'll take too long. I don't want to do it.
And one thing that I think is fun. Let me see. The one thing that I'm really fucking disagree with. Why is Tears of Denial on high tier? Like, what the fuck? That's a fucking top tier spell.
Yeah, it's probably the best thing. But then I guess if you're assuming in a duel where you don't get a free buff.
But usually when you in a duel, not in a tournament, usually you just pre-buff before you're doing the duel.
Yeah, but it should be an S tier for that very reason. Okay, so I think we've covered the whole tier list. Closing thoughts?
No, actually, I'm happy with the results.
Okay, because I thought you mentioned something about wanting to talk about the way classes stack up against each other.
Yeah, the one thing I have to go back to my picture though, but one thing that I'm really disagreeing with is how like they have set up the classes from top tier, high tier, mid tier, low tier, something else tier, and if you compare everything side by side, a lot of things I disagree with. I'm just going to find my thing here.
Well, yeah, it's like okay, let's put it this way. They say Gale's is just as good as Pontiff Knight Curve Sword, for instance. That's laughable. That's how can you take this list seriously just by looking at that?
Yeah, like I think this is a random who made a list, and him like not to shit talk him or anything. Like his list is it's really fucking good. He did his homework for the most part. The one
Oh,
thing he
well, it's
didn't
not a
though is
random, sorry to interrupt. It's actually the DSG Discord, which is, I think it's 4chan's Discord.
okay. Wow.
But anyway, sorry, back to the rant.
Yeah, like okay, they probably did their homework, but they didn't talk to any of the triads after what I know. Like I think if they talked to either me, Revan, B-dubs, or the other dudes about this list, I think they would disagree hard on the list. Like the Saints Biden, like the spear is top tier. How? I don't understand. The scimitar, for instance, it is high tier. Why? It should be if anything, it should be top tier because of the speed. Almost all the greatswords in almost every greatsword in the game is high tier. No, high tier greatsword would be destroyed by a high tier scimitar in terms of this list. So there's a lot of things that, but in terms of if they just compare the classes to itself, then yes, I would agree with a lot of it. But in terms of the broad view of the full game, I would either do like a S tier, A, B, C, D, and F tier. Like do it in that fashion.
Mm-hmm.
And like there's only after what I'm going to say right now, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for it. And this is me saying it. The S tier, and if I'm going to just use 2 weapons of every fucking class in the game, or like 1 weapon of every class in the game, the S tier is Lothric straight sword and Pontiff Curve. So that's the S tier of the game. There's nothing you can say to me to get me to say something else. That is the meta in the game. Straight sword, board and sword, and curve. So that is the meta. Any greatsword two-handed in game will just get shut down by either a board and sword user or a curved sword user. Every spear user, good spear user, will get shut down by a board and sword user because it's a counter, and if you're good with spacing with curved swords, you will get shut down hard. Every ultra greatsword user will get shut down against a fist weapon or any bad fucking a broken dagger would destroy a ultra greatsword just because the speed is bad. The one thing that can compete with the meta, and that's a lot of things, and that's if you pair Yorm or Great Machete with the straight sword, that will compete with the meta because it's a really good thing, but still it's a straight sword paired with something else. So if you were just going to look at the weapons in general with nothing paired, there's nothing that would beat a curved sword. If you just use the straight sword without anything in the left hand, because technically now I'm just using my sword. My sword is carrying me. What Revan is using right now, his shield is carrying him. That's the only way. That's the only thing between me and him for me to hit him.
Yep. No, I completely agree with that, and that's a very good closing thought. But I guess there's only one thing to do then, which is, seeing as we complete the list, we're going to leave it open for then people to discuss. We have to fight. So yeah, let's record. Let's see what we got recorded so far, and then let's get to it. I'm not on a real build.
Okay, I'm ready. I am not.
Okay, this should be quite fun. I'm on a highly unoptimized build. This is my pre-spec build, and I don't think I was so embered. So let's go. Daddy, no.
Ooh. Ooh. Oh shit. I'm just going to do some casual shit.
Oh no, I walked straight into that. Oh no, don't get flawless. Ah! I shouldn't have stopped pressing R1. GG.
GG's.